Chapter 2283, replaced. When Jian Chen returned to the soaring cloud's peak, the entire place was quiet. With his sharp senses, he discovered that both Zhuofeng and Han Xian were not on the soaring cloud's peak. He glanced into the distance and discovered that many radiant saint masters of various cultivation levels were flying directly towards the sky-gazing peak from the other peaks. Jian Chen immediately stopped a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core and asked what was happening. The radiant saint master Jian Chen stopped was a young woman. She immediately looked at Jian Chen with an extremely strange gaze after hearing Jian Chen's question. "Oh? You don't know? The Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak and the Lord of the Snowfall Peak are fighting on the sky-gazing peak. I heard they're fighting for a position as one of the 9 retainers or something." A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. He clasped his fist at the young lady and no longer remained there for any longer. A pair of radiant wings appeared on his back as he hurried off to the sky-gazing peak as quickly as he could. Jian Chen unleashed his full speed along the way. He constantly overtook radiant saint masters with 3-colored soul cores, causing many of them to look over. Who is he? He only seems to have a 1-colored soul core, but how is he able to move so astonishingly fast? He can actually use the radiant wings to such a level. Does he really have a 1-colored soul core? The person who just passed us seems to be Changyang of the Soaring Clouds Peak. What? He's Changyang? That person who's rumored to have perfected the usage of radiant saint force? Cries rang out from the surroundings constantly, but Jian Chen ignored them all. He only traveled as quickly as he could, flying over mountain after mountain before finally arriving on the sky-gazing peak. The huge square on the sky-gazing peak had already become crowded. Many radiant saint masters of varying strength gathered there while a huge ring hovered in the air in the center of the square. Jian Chen saw Han Xian and a skinny, middle-aged man battling in the ring with a single glance. The floating ring was a supreme quality saint artifact. Its surroundings were protected by a powerful barrier, enough to easily endure a battle between late god kings. At this moment, Han Xian and the Lord of the Snowfall Peak's battle had already reached a great intensity. The laws of the hallowed filled their surroundings, clashing time and time again. It erupted with powerful ripples of energy. All of the energy ripples were stopped by the energy barrier around the ring such that their battle was unable to harm the surrounding radiant saint masters. They fought extremely quickly. Weaker radiant saint masters only saw a flurry, unable to see the two of them strike out at all. Jian Chen frowned when he saw the fight. With his level of cultivation, he could naturally see the entire battle. He could tell with a single glance that Han Xian was quite a lot weaker compared to the Lord of the Snowfall Peak. He had clearly lost the upper hand. His defeat was only a matter of time now. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak should be at the peak of early Radiant God King, Jian Chen thought. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak was only a step away from a cultivation realm equivalent to mid-God King, while Han Xian had only reached God King recently. As he had expected, Han Xian was struck in the chest by the laws of the hallowed. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak condensed. Han Xian was blown away, striking the barrier around the ring heavily. He struggled to climb to his feet. Victory goes to the Lord of the Snowfall Peak, Zhou Yuan. The Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak's voice rang out, announcing the results of the battle. Afterwards, the barrier opened up, and the white-clothed, skinny Lord of the Snowfall Peak left the ring with a flushed face under the enthusiastic cheers of all the disciples there. Han Xian, on the other hand, laid in the ring, bloodied. He was very injured. Sir! Zhuofeng and Biyao, who had been waiting below the ring, immediately flew up and looked at the injured Han Xian. Sorrow filled their faces. Jian Chen also arrived in the ring as quickly as he could. He remained silent as he directly used his radiant arts to heal Han Xian. Both Biyao and Zhuofeng were slightly surprised by Jian Chen's sudden appearance. Even Han Xian's gloomy gaze lit up slightly. But at this moment, they were clearly in no mood to catch up. Han Xian, why don't you take a good look at yourself first before you try to contend for the spot with me? Humph, you think too highly of yourself. At this moment, the Lord of the Snowfall Peak suddenly looked back and scoffed. Han Xian, you should feel fortunate that we're in the Radiant Saint Hall. Although I can't kill you even when we're outside, I'll definitely leave you half dead, the Lord of the Snowfall Peak said arrogantly. He did not seem to take Han Xian seriously at all. Afterwards, he looked at Jian Chen, and his gaze became especially cold. Although this was the first time he had seen Jian Chen, how was it possible for him to not know the person behind his second disciple's injuries? However, Jian Chen only had a one-colored soul core. He was no different from an ant in his eyes, so with his status, he would never lower himself to talk to Jian Chen. Just when the Lord of the Snowfall Peak was about to look away, Jian Chen just happened to gaze over. They made eye contact. However, the eye contact made the Peak Lord's heart suddenly lurch as he felt an ill omen. But afterwards, the Peak Lord laughed at himself. He thought, what's up with me? Have I been frightened by a low-level disciple with only a one-colored soul core? The Peak Lord did not pay too much attention to it. He left under the gazes of admiration from the many disciples. Han Xian had already been escorted back to the Soaring Clouds Peak by Jian Chen, Biyao, and Zhuo Feng. At this moment, Han Xian sat in his small wooden hut at the top of the Soaring Clouds Peak as he healed with Radiant Saint Force. Junior sister, what is wrong? Why was teacher fighting with the Lord of the Snowfallen Peak? Jian Chen asked Biyao softly from outside the wooden hut. Biyao looked at the wooden hut and said with a heavy heart, it's all because of the position as one of the 9 retainers for a chosen saint candidate. Among the 5 candidates, Donglin Yanxue was still missing a retainer, so teacher and the Lord of the Snowfall Peak's fight was to decide who would take up the role as the final retainer for Donglin Yanxue. Jian Chen frowned when he heard that. He suddenly felt an ill omen. Strange. Isn't the chosen saint the only who can choose retainers? I heard that due to some things that happened in the last 2 competitions, all 5 candidates this time seem to have the right to choose 9 retainers. It has something to do with the first trial, said Biyao. In other words, Donglin Yanxue's 9 candidates have already been confirmed? Jian Chen asked. That's right. I heard from my master that aside from the Lord of the Snowfall Peak, the other 8 retainers for Donglin Yanxue all have mid-7 colored soul cores, said Biyao. The master she spoke about was clearly the elder who had taken her away from the Soaring Clouds Peak. Jian Chen's face did not change at all from that, but his heart had already sunken. Raging fury built up within him. Chapter 2284, All for Nothing. In the past, he had given Donglin Yanxue a pure soul, which allowed her cultivation to increase drastically within 2 years. As a result, she became the chosen saint. The entire purpose behind his actions was to gain a position as one of the 9 retainers so that he could access the Tower of Radiance. However, in the end, as the day of the competition approached, he learned from Biyao that Donglin Yanxue's 9 retainers had already been decided. Donglin Yanxue had broken her side of the promise, leaving Jian Chen utterly furious. He could not keep up his disguise on the desolate plain for long. He would be exposed once the blood tests came for him. Although the blood tests were not as strict in the Radiant Saint Hall compared to the outside world, he knew that all the disciples of the Radiant Saint Hall would eventually be forced to take the blood tests. As a result, he was truly running out of time. If he could not enter the Tower of Radiance as one of Donglin Yanxue's 9 retainers, he might lose the chance to enter the Tower of Radiance forever. Donglin Yanxue has been making extremely rapid progress among the 5 candidates. I heard teachers say that Donglin Yanxue went from an early 4-colored soul core to the peak of the 4-colored soul core in 2 or 3 years. She's only a step away from the 5-colored soul core. Although the 4 other candidates have been making great progress as well, none of them have reached the peak of the 4-colored soul core. As a result, Donglin Yanxue has gone from being the weakest to the strongest out of the 5 candidates. Moreover, I heard from Master that her grasp and control over Radiant Saint Force has skyrocketed over the past 2 years. She has become even more skilled. There's at least a 70% chance that she'll become the chosen saint. Biyao looked at Jian Chen and said with hidden meaning. She knew about Donglin Yanxue spending half a month in Jian Chen's dwelling. Jian Chen listened to Biyao talk about Donglin Yanxue's transformation over the past 2 years. Finally, he could not hold himself back anymore. He reminded Biyao to look after Han Xian before immediately leaving the soaring cloud's peak. He condensed a pair of radiant wings and shot towards the myriad flowers' peak with lightning speed. There was less than a week until the competition between the candidates began. As a result, Jian Chen was able to hear all the Radiant Saint Masters discuss the matter everywhere thanks to his superior senses. Donglin Yenshue's rapid cultivation advancement was no secret. The news had already spread far and wide, so Jian Chen heard many discussions about her. All sorts of versions to this story appeared. However, a small portion of people believed that Donglin Yenshue's improvement over the past 2 years was directly related to Changyang of the Soaring Clouds Peak. No way. Changyang only has a one-colored soul core, and it's said that he's a 1-star genius. How can he assist a 9-star genius with a 4-colored soul core like Donglin Yenshue? Naturally, more people snorted in response. These discussions either came from small groups of Radiant Saint Masters conversing quietly as they traveled through the air or from the nearby mountains. Jian Chen missed none of it with his superior senses. Jian Chen remained silently along the way. With his speed at the one-colored soul core, he finally arrived on the Myriad Flowers Peak a few hours later. Right after Jian Chen set foot on the mountain, he spread out his senses and enveloped the entire place. The Lord of the Myriad Flowers Peak was also an expert equivalent to a mid-god king. Hence, Jian Chen did not dare to use the senses of his soul, just in case the Peak Lord could sense it. However, it was impossible for her to discover his normal senses. However, Jian Chen's face sank very soon. Donglin Yenshue was not on the Myriad Flowers Peak. Isn't that Changyang of the Soaring Clouds Peak? It really is him. I heard that Senior Donglin Yenshue journeyed quite the distance to go to the Soaring Clouds Peak to look for him. She even stayed in his dwelling for half a month, so he's Changyang. His appearance isn't impressive at all. His cultivation is nothing special, and it's said that he has no background. I really don't know why this person caught Senior Yenshue's eyes. Shoo, don't blabber. How can he catch Senior Yenshue's eyes? It's said that Senior Yenshue only went to find him last time to exchange their experiences on cultivation. The majority of the disciples on the Myriad Flowers Peak were female. Presently, there were a few male disciples from other peaks among them. Immediately, many of the women discovered Jian Chen's arrival. They all cast curious gazes over as they discussed softly in the distance. Jian Chen did not stick around. He turned around and left the Myriad Flowers Peak, returning to the Soaring Clouds Peak. Since Donglin Yenshue was not on the Myriad Flowers Peak, she would definitely be in the Sacred Hall. However, Jian Chen could set foot in there with his current status. Several hours later, Jian Chen returned to the Soaring Clouds Peak. He did not go to the mountain peak. Instead, he sat on a black rock outside his dwelling quietly. He stared at the misty mountains in a daze. Do I really have to expose the fact that I've comprehended the laws of the hallowed already? At this moment, Jian Chen felt conflicted. With Donglin Yenshue going back on her word, he was now stuck between a rock and a hard place. He had no idea how to proceed. Was he supposed to give up on the chance to enter the Tower of Radiance and travel away from this place, away from the desolate plain? Alternatively, did he have to expose the secret of him comprehending the laws of the hallowed with a one-colored soul core, becoming the only genius with such an achievement in the past 1,000,000 years? He would immediately become the chosen saint if he chose the latter. He was reluctant to leave. However, if he revealed his talent, he would immediately become the center of attention. This would increase the chance of him getting exposed. After all, once he became the chosen saint, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall would definitely thoroughly investigate his past or even directly peer into his past and future. Just as Jian Chen faced this dilemma, a figure surrounded by light arrived on the Soaring Clouds Peak. Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed when this person arrived. He was surprised. Even though the person was shrouded by light that obscured her appearance, Jian Chen could tell from a single glance that she was Donglin Yenshue. "We'll talk in your dwelling," Donglin Yanxue said to Jianchen secretly before directly flying into his dwelling. A gleam of light flickered through Jianchen's eyes. He returned to his simple dwelling silently and immediately cast a formation at the entrance. When Donglin Yanxue saw Jianchen cast such an unimpressive formation, she frowned slightly. With a wave of her hand, she tossed out a formation disc and set up an even more powerful formation. Afterwards, she dispersed the light and revealed her face. I get noticed wherever I go now, so I had no choice but to do this, Donglin Yanxue said to Jianchen helplessly. Jianchen remained indifferent. He stared at Donglin Yanshue's pretty face closely and said coldly, "You didn't keep your word." Donglin Yanxue became apologetic and replied, "I know, but this matter has already left my control. I no longer have the power to choose the 9 retainers. I'm extremely sorry about this." Donglin Yanxue was ashamed. Chapter 2285, The Lord of the Snowfall Peak's Death. I have to enter the Tower of Radiance no matter what, Jianchen secretly made up his mind. The Snowfall Peak was not far from the Soaring Clouds Peak. They were only separated by 3 mountains. On this day, 3 middle-aged men dressed in radiant Saint Master attire arrived beyond the Snowfall Peak. They smiled as they hovered there. One of them said, "Zhou Yuan, your old friends have come to visit. Are you busy?" The 3 middle-aged men were all lords of peaks in the Radiant Saint Hall. They all had 7 colored soul cores. In the past, they did not need to announce their arrival when they came to visit the Lord of the Snowfall Peak. They would directly set foot on the mountain. But now, Zhou Yuan had become one of Donglin Yanshue's 9 retainers. It was extremely likely for him to enter the Tower of Radiance. His status differed greatly from before, so the 3 of them were unable to visit him as liberally as they used to. The 3 peak lords waited there. However, before Zhou Yuan could answer them, the first disciple of the Snowfall Peak, Zhou Mu, had come to receive them. Zhou Mu was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He had a calm and cool personality and possessed quite a bit of talent. He had only been cultivating for around 2,000 years, yet he already possessed a 4-colored soul core. He had comprehended the laws of the hallowed when he had a 3-colored soul core. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak took the most pride in this disciple. Zhou Mu greets the 3 peak lords. The 3 peak lords have come at a bad time. My teacher is not on the Snowfall Peak right now. Zhou Mu clasped his fist politely. What? Zhou Yuan is not on the Snowfall Peak? Where did he go then? The 3 peak lords were surprised. Zhou Mu hesitated before replying, "In a few days, the competition between the chosen saints will begin. Teacher is preparing for that right now, so he has already left the Radiant Saint Hall to buy some saint artifacts that will increase his strength. If that's the case, we won't trouble you anymore. Let's go." The 3 peak lords became disappointed. They did not set foot on the Snowfall Peak, turning around and leaving instead. A figure silently emerged from the dense mist after the 3 of them left. He seemed to be in his 20s, and his appearance was nothing special. He did not stand out at all. He was Jianchen, who had disguised himself as Chang Yang. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak has actually left the Radiant Saint Hall. Jianchen stared at the Snowfall Peak from afar. He did not use the senses of his soul, only his regular, superior senses to listen in on the entire conversation between Zhou Mu and the 3 peak lords. Perfect, a gleam of vicious light flickered through Jianchen's eyes. He hid in the clouds again and vanished as if he was never there in the first place. No one discovered his presence. Afterwards, Jianchen concealed his presence. He did not register his leave in the Foreign Affairs Hall. Instead, he avoided everyone and left the Radiant Saint Hall like a ghost. With his current cultivation, even the God King stationed in the Foreign Affairs Hall would not be able to discover him at all if he really wanted to remain hidden. As a result, no one knew about his departure. Jianchen continued to cover up his tracks after leaving the Radiant Saint Hall. With a flash, he disappeared into a bush several 100,000 kilometers away from the Radiant Saint Hall. A while later, he re-emerged. This time, he was dressed in black robes, and his appearance had undergone an overwhelming change. He disguised himself as an especially burly man who stood over 2 meters tall. He had quite the vicious face. It was impossible for anyone to connect his current stature with the radiant Saint Masters that had delicate bodies. Although the Lord of the Snowfall Peak ventured out, no one knows where he is with how vast the desolate plain is. As a result, I can only wait for him in a place he must pass to return to the radiant Saint Hall. Jian Chen stared into the distance as his gaze became piercing. They shone with astonishing killing intent. I can't let the Lord of the Snowfall Peak return to the radiant Saint Hall alive this time, thought Jian Chen. Then he pushed off the ground with his feet as the laws of strength revolved around him. Like a loose arrow, he turned into a black streak of light and shot off into the distance with lightning speed. He instantly vanished into the horizon. In the end, Jian Chen stopped when he was far enough from the radiant Saint Hall. Afterwards, he found a place to hide and carefully concealed his presence. He waited for his prey silently. Zhou Yuan had to pass this place to return to the radiant Saint Hall. Regardless of where he went, he would definitely come here once he wanted to return to the radiant Saint Hall. Jian Chen's wait lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, Peak Lord Zhou Yuan dressed in his white robes appeared in a teleportation formation within a bustling city that was closest to the radiant Saint Hall. He walked out excitedly, and without any hesitation, he immediately took to the air and headed back to the radiant Saint Hall. This trip was worth it. It was completely worth it. I didn't come out for nothing. Although I've basically used up all my savings, I've managed to buy this. It's all worth it. With this, my battle prowess will be no weaker than those radiant Saint Masters with mid-7 colored soul cores. Although my cultivation is the lowest among the 9 of us, my battle prowess is probably enough for me to rank in the top 3 as long as I use this. The Peak Lord was overjoyed. He had indeed benefited greatly from this trip. It was enough for him to stand out, make a name for himself, and become renowned during the competition between the candidates that everyone paid attention to. To him, this was a great honor. Moreover, this honor would only be the start to his wonderful future. The Peak Lord left the city very soon. He flew in the sky using Radiant Saint Force. There were no teleportation formations he could use for the remainder of the journey, so he could only fly slowly. However, when the Peak Lord flew over a barren mountain range, a black figure suddenly shot up and directly blocked his path. "Sir, who are you? Why do you block my path?" The Peak Lord came to a halt as he frowned impatiently. He was in a hurry to return to the Radiant Saint Hall right now to make his final preparations for the competition between the candidates. He was unwilling to waste any time when every second mattered. "Zhou Yuan, you've forgotten about me so soon?" The person who blocked Zhou Yuan was Jian Chen, who had disguised himself as a burly man. He stared at Zhou Yuan and sneered. At the same time, his gaze became piercing. The Peak Lord was filled with doubt because he was certain that he did not know this black-robed man. However, when he felt the man's piercing gaze, his heart actually lurched. His heart began to beat faster as he became rather afraid of making eye contact with this person. That gaze seems to be rather familiar, thought the Peak Lord. Very soon, he shuddered violently and immediately stared at the man in disbelief. He felt emotional turmoil as he cried out, "Why, you're..." At that moment, he finally recalled the owner of this familiar gaze. It was the gaze that Chang Yang revealed when the Peak Lord defeated the Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak, Han Xian. Chang Yang clearly only had a 1-colored soul core, but he had now completely transformed into a fighter who gave off the presence of a god king surrounded by the laws of strength. Immediately, the Peak Lord was covered in cold sweat. He was dumbfounded. He clearly understood what it meant to be both a fighter and Radiant Saint Master. However, before the Peak Lord had time to think more about it, Jian Chen had already struck out decisively. His hand directly moved towards Zhou Yuan's head. Not only did the palm strike contain the strength of his 13th layer chaotic body, but it was also amplified by the laws of strength. As a result, despite not using the laws of the sword, his attack resembled a strike from the primordial realm. The air rumbled as he struck out, space shook. The Peak Lord's expression changed drastically. He could not dodge or react in time. He could only watch Jian Chen's hand approach him. Bang! Jian Chen's hand landed on the Peak Lord's head without any suspense. Not only did the Peak Lord's head directly explode from the terrifying power of the chaotic body amplified by the laws of strength, but the force of the attack even reduced his body to mincemeat. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak, Zhou Yuan, had died from the first strike. Chapter 2286, Vice Leader Xian Zhan, 1. After killing the Lord of the Snowfall Peak, Jian Chen did not stick around. He turned around and left. He did not touch any of Zhou Yuan's belongings, as he was afraid of leaving behind clues that could be traced back to him. Afterwards, Jian Chen disguised himself as Radiant Saint Master Chang Yang again in an obscure location. He made his way around the Foreign Affairs Hall and returned to the Soaring Clouds Peak with an extremely low profile. The Radiant Saint Hall learnt of Zhou Yuan's death very soon. Right when Jian Chen returned to the Soaring Clouds Peak, 3 elders and several violet-robed guards left the Radiant Saint Hall that stood above the clouds in an aggressive manner. They reached the location where the Lord of the Snowfall Peak had died very soon. The faces of the 3 elders sank the moment they saw the crushed corpse. Their faces became extremely ugly. Zhou Yuan had died in a place where he had to pass through to return to the Radiant Saint Hall. This was placed close to the Radiant Saint Hall, yet someone was bold enough to kill a Peak Lord here. This matter was basically a slap of naked provocation to the Radiant Saint Hall in the eyes of the 3 elders. Look around. We have to get to the bottom of this. We can't spare Zhou Yuan's murderer. How dare he kill a lord of a peak? This person isn't taking us seriously at all. Immediately ask guest elder Mu Tian to come over. Get him to turn back time here. We need to know everything that happened. The 3 elders were furious. They did not care about Zhou Yuan's life. They only cared about the dignity of the Radiant Saint Hall. He was a Peak Lord, yet he had been mercilessly slain along the path back to the Radiant Saint Hall. If they did not look into this matter properly and failed to capture the murderer, it would damage the name of the Radiant Saint Hall. Very soon, a grey-robed old man was brought over under the lead of several violet-robed guards. He was Mu Tian. He was not a Radiant Saint Master but a fighter. He was an infinite prime that held a guest position in the Radiant Saint Hall, enjoying a status similar to the elders of the Radiant Saint Hall. Mu Tian immediately used a secret technique to turn back time to reveal the events that had occurred. Very soon, the Peak Lord's death at Jian Chen's hands was displayed clearly. However, the eyes of the elders and Mu Tian narrowed slightly when they saw the Peak Lord perish from a single palm strike. This person is very powerful. He probably has a foot planted in the primordial realm. It's quite tough for me to turn back time, Mu Tian said emotionlessly. Looks like the black-robed man had grievances with Zhou Yuan. The Peak Lord's death is related to revenge. It doesn't matter why Zhou Yuan died. He's still a Peak Lord from our Radiant Saint Hall. We must get to the bottom of his death, record his appearance and immediately set up a bounty for him. The 3 elders ordered the setting of a bounty without any hesitation. Very soon, the bounty was set up, and the search for Zhou Yuan's murderer began throughout the entire desolate plain. At the same time, their investigation into the black-robed man began. The Radiant Saint Hall was a peak organization of the desolate plain after all. The more powerful an organization was, the more they cared about their image. The death of a Peak Lord along the path back to the Radiant Saint Hall had basically crossed their bottom line. The Radiant Saint Hall would never drop the matter. Meanwhile, the white-robed Donglin Yanxue was sitting on a bed within the Radiant Saint Hall as she rested with her eyes closed. There were only 3 days until the competition between the candidates. She needed to adjust herself to her peak condition so that she could contend for the position she had longed for with all her might. At this moment, the door was opened, and a graceful woman walked in. Despite looking middle-aged, she was still charming. Her skin was white and filled with a mature sense of beauty. Greetings to Master. Donglin Yanxue immediately got off her bed and bowed politely when she saw the middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman was Donglin Yenshua's master in the Radiant Saint Hall. She was also one of the elders. Her name was Mu Shui. Mu Shui nodded. She looked at Donglin Yenshue gently and said, "Yenshue, I've come to tell you something. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak, Zhou Yuan, one of your 9 retainers, has died outside. You now have a missing retainer spot, and someone new will be chosen soon." "The Lord of the Snowfall Peak is dead?" A strange light flickered through Donglin Yenshue's beautiful eyes immediately. "That's right. He's dead, and he died on his way back to the Radiant Saint Hall. The person who killed him sure is bold, daring to take action right outside the Radiant Saint Hall," said Mu Shui. "Master, do you know who the murderer is? The Peak Lord is one of my retainers after all. I can't distance myself from his murder at a time like this," Donglin Yenshue said. "We have the appearance of the murderer. It's in this crystal. However, you're far too weak right now, so you can't avenge Zhou Yuan. That's because the murderer is very powerful. I think only the elders of the Radiant Saint Hall can deal with him. Adjust your condition properly in the next 2 days. I'll choose your new retainer for you." Mu Shui left behind a crystal and was about to leave. "Master, can I choose this retainer instead?" Donglin Yenshue immediately asked. Mu Shui stopped. She looked back at Donglin Yenshue and sighed gently. "Are you thinking about giving the position to that disciple from the Soaring Clouds Peak? It's a pity that he's too weak. Master, I owe Cheng Yang a huge favor. Just help me out this time and let me return the favor. Otherwise, I'll always be in guilt. It'll affect my future cultivation," Donglin Yenshue pleaded painstakingly. Mu Shui sighed gently. She said with some helplessness, "All right then, I'll listen to you. I'll do my best to persuade the other elders. In the end, it's not my decision to make." Jian Shen sat in his dwelling on the Soaring Clouds Peak. The light in his eyes flickered as he sank into his thoughts. Although the Peak Lord's death has opened up a spot among the 9 retainers, Donglin Yenshue has said that she isn't completely confident about this matter. As a result, I can't place all my hopes on Donglin Yenshue. Looks like it's time for me to find Xian Ming, thought Jian Shen. After making up his mind, he sent a sliver of the senses of his soul into the Anata Tower immediately. Chapter 2287, Vice Leader Xian Zhan, 2. Xian Ming was sitting on the floor of the 2nd floor in the Anata Tower. Currently, he was devoting himself to cultivation. Dense, sacred radiant saint force enveloped him as the laws of the hallowed revolved about his surroundings. He was trying his best to condense a soul tree. This was because an extremely powerful demon threatened the lives of hallowed saint masters who reached peak radiant God King. As a result, Xian Ming did not dare to leave this place unless he broke through. He did not dare to go outside and would prefer permanent restriction. As a result, only by breaking through and condensing a soul tree, reaching something akin to the primordial realm for fighters, would he recover his freedom. Xian Ming. At this moment, Jian Shen condensed an illusionary figure using the sliver of his soul and appeared before Xian Ming silently. At this moment, he was forced to disturb Xian Ming's cultivation. He roused Xian Ming with a gentle call. "Brother Jian Shen. Huh, long time no see. Oh right, how's the situation outside right now? Have you avoided the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's pursuit? Have you made it onto the desolate plain?" Xian Ming stopped cultivating and asked several questions immediately. In particular, his eyes lit up with undisguised eagerness when he mentioned the desolate plain. "I'm already on the desolate plain," said Jian Shen. Xian Ming's face immediately lit up when he heard that. He said in excitement, "Really? You're already on the desolate plain? Fantastic, this is just fantastic. Oh right. Brother Jian Shen, where are you on the desolate plain right now?" "See, can you?" Xian Ming paused and began to hesitate. Jian Shen smiled and said, "Xian Ming, if there's anything you want to say, just say it." After hesitating for a while, Xian Ming gritted his teeth and clasped his fist at Jian Shen before saying, "Brother Jian Shen, can you pay a visit to the Radiant Saint Hall and tell my father I'm still alive and safe right now? After all, it has already been far too long since I left the desolate plain. I've cut off all contact with my father to avoid being discovered by the great demon for all these years. My father has no idea that I'm well right now. Naturally. However, your father is one of the 8 vice leaders of the Radiant Saint Hall. He stands supreme. It's not that easy for me to see him, Jian Shen agreed without any hesitation. Xian Ming's request happened to align with his needs. That's easy. Xian Ming bit his finger to draw blood and placed a droplet of it in a jade bottle before passing it to Jian Shen. He said, hallowed saint masters at my father's level are extremely sensitive to their bloodline. Jian Shen, take this jade bottle and open it near the Radiant Saint Hall. As long as my father is in the Radiant Saint Hall, he'll sense it. Jian Shen stowed the bottle away. After some thought, he said, just this isn't enough. If your father misunderstands me and thinks that I obtained this droplet of blood through other means, I'll be in trouble. Then let me write a letter and tell my father that you, Jian Shen, are my best friend. Xian Ming immediately took out a jade slip from his space ring and began to engrave a message in there with the senses of his soul. Hold on. I'm using a different name on the desolate plain right now. Don't use the name Jian Shen. Use Cheng Yang instead. Also, don't mention any details about me to your father. You can't disclose the existence of this tower either. You must have sensed it. This tower can hide you from the heavenly secrets, so it is an item of great quality. If your father learns about it, who knows if he'll start targeting me, Jian Shen warned sternly. He could not afford to be careless when handling this. Xian Ming thought Jian Shen was still being hunted down by the Azure Pen King, so he guaranteed, Brother Jian Shen, you do not need to worry at all. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance will not dare to take a single step onto the desolate plain. However, Xian Ming still followed Jian Shen's request. After he finished writing, he passed the jade slip to Jian Shen for him to check the contents. After all, he was hiding with Jian Shen's assistance. He had to listen to Jian Shen for everything. If he angered Jian Shen, he might decide to not go to the Radiant Saint Hall to meet his father. Jian Shen carefully checked the contents of the jade slip. After confirming several times that there was nothing wrong, he left the 2nd floor with the jade bottle and the jade slip. He arrived on the 9th floor. Jian Shen moved the droplet of blood to a jade bottle of higher quality on the 9th floor. No matter how long this blood stays in this bottle, it will be like it was just drawn. As a result, Xian Ming's father won't be able to tell when this blood was drawn and stored in the bottle, thought Jian Shen. After arranging everything and ensuring that there were no problems, the sliver of his soul finally left the Anata Tower. Jian Shen sat in his dwelling as he looked at the jade bottle. He hesitated slightly before opening the bottle cap. At the same time, 2 middle-aged men sat before each other within a well-decorated room of the Radiant Saint Hall. Xianzhan, who do you think will become chosen saint this time? One of the middle-aged men enjoyed the good alcohol leisurely as he asked in a casual tone. He was rather skinny, but his resolute face possessed a dignified presence of supremacy, much like a king. He just seemed to be naturally awe-inspiring. He was one of the 8 vice leaders of the Radiant Saint Hall, Mohe. The middle-aged man referred to as Xianzhan seemed especially burly. Just his body alone seemed to possess terrifying amounts of power. His chiseled face seemed cold, and it was enough to cause people to shiver. His gaze was piercing as well. It was difficult to maintain eye contact with him. There was always worry, sometimes more, sometimes less, on his face. It was like something weighed on his heart permanently. Xianzhan was also one of the 8 vice leaders of the Radiant Saint Hall. He held great authority in the Radiant Saint Hall, making him an existence second to only the leader himself. I have no interest in that. It will be up to their luck as for who emerges victorious, Xianzhan said indifferently. Worry always lingered on his face. He looked at Xianzhan and sighed gently. You're worrying about your treasured son again? Xianzhan said nothing. He looked at the sky outside blankly with his piercing eyes. He sighed inside when he saw this. He had no idea how to comfort Xianzhan. After all, Xianming was Xianzhan's only child. Xianzhan had always treasured and spoilt Xianming, raising him with everything that he had. If Xianming had really died, he had no idea how great of an impact it would have on Xianzhan. However, at this moment, Xianzhan suddenly shuddered. His eyes immediately shone brightly as he leapt out of his seat. He became fixated on a certain direction as he could not help but show excitement. In the next moment, he took a step and vanished. As if he had teleported, he left the sacred hall and appeared in the mountains below. What is Xianzhan doing? He was surprised by Xianzhan's actions. However, he did not follow along. Instead, he sat there to enjoy his rare liquor as he secretly paid attention to everything in the Radiant Saint Hall. Chapter 2288. Visiting the sacred hall. Jianchen sat in his dwelling as he looked at the open bottle in his hands. He waited quietly. He knew that Xianming's father would be able to sense the blood of his child. However, this could only happen within a certain range. If he were too far away, even an expert like Xianming's father would lose the ability to do so. I hope Xianming's father is in the Radiant Saint Hall, Jianchen secretly pleaded. He truly required help from Xianming's father if he wanted to enter the Tower of Radiance successfully at a time like this. Every retainer of the 5 candidates had people supporting them from behind. If Jianchen did not find a backer, it would be impossible for him to get selected over the others. As a result, Jianchen had no choice but to gain the support of Xianzhan's father. At this moment, Jianchen suddenly sensed something. Right afterwards, he only saw a blur, and a white-robed, burly, chisel-faced, middle-aged man appeared before him silently. The middle-aged man had silently appeared like a ghost. The simple formations outside Jianchen's dwelling were completely useless before him. The middle-aged man was one of the 8 vice leaders, Xianzhan. As soon as Xianzhan arrived, his piercing eyes locked onto the jade bottle in Jianchen's hand. His cold, hardened face could not help but reveal a look of excitement. "Where did you get this droplet of blood from?" Xianzhan asked. He stared at Jianchen with a sword-like gaze. Immediately, Jianchen felt a piercing pain everywhere. Xianzhan's gaze was just too sharp. It actually caused Jianchen pain. Jianchen immediately became polite. He bowed towards Xianzhan and said, "Senior must be Xianming's father, right?" A gleam of light flashed through Xianzhan's eyes when he heard that. He called out, "You actually know about Ming'er? Tell me, where is Ming'er? Please do not become flustered, Senior." "I have something that Xianming has asked for me to bring to Senior," said Jianchen before taking out the jade slip from Xianming. Undisguised joy covered Xianzhan's face when he heard that Xianming had left something for him. He snatched the jade slip from Jianchen's hands impatiently and immediately checked the contents. "Ming'er is still alive." "He's still alive." Xianzhan viewed everything inside in a single moment. A smile that he had not shown for many years appeared on his cool face. He seemed to lighten up quite a lot then and there. Indeed, a heavy burden had finally been lifted from Xianzhan's heart after he learned that Xianming was still alive. He truly stopped worrying. "Where is Ming'er right now? And when did you meet him?" Xianzhan's gaze towards Jianchen immediately became amiable. This was because Xianming had clearly stated that Chang Yang was his friend and had helped him in the past. Xianzhan would obviously treat the person who had assisted his son and brought news of his son with a friendlier attitude. Xianming is in a very safe place. There is no need for him to worry about being discovered by the great demon he speaks of at all there. It's inconvenient for me to tell you where it is. However, I did meet Xianming roughly a few years ago, replied Jianchen. Xianming immediately became cautious and said, "I have been careless." "If that is the case, you can't reveal Xianming's location at all. That person is just too powerful. His comprehension of laws has greatly exceeded the leaders. All the people at such a level possess exceptional abilities. Once you tell me, he'll probably be able to find out where Ming'er is hiding. Xianzhan paused after that. He looked at Jian Chen with brimming interest and said, "You're called Changyang, right? Since you have ties with my son, and you've helped him before, I'll return this favor for Ming'er as his father. Changyang, would you like to become my disciple? Once you become my disciple, I will nurture you with everything I have to offer until you reach mid-7-colored soul core." Xianzhan immediately expressed his intention of accepting Jian Chen as a disciple. If this news made its way outside, it would be enough to throw the entire Radiant Saint Hall into an uproar. In the Radiant Saint Hall, even the 5 candidates only received guidance from the elders. None of them had the right to have a vice leader as their master. Even if it were an ordinary disciple with lackluster cultivation, becoming a disciple of a vice leader would immediately lead to their status skyrocketing. Their position would completely exceed the 5 candidates and would lead to a future of unlimited potential. Even the chosen saint was not as great as a disciple of a vice leader. Chosen saints would be selected once every millennium and would only receive 1,000 years of support after becoming the chosen saint. Meanwhile, the disciples of vice leaders did not have a time limit. Throughout the history of the Radiant Saint Hall, even chosen saints would not have the right to have a vice leader as their master. They would only receive the guidance from the vice leaders or leader from time to time. After the millennium was over, they would go back to what they were before. In other words, the opportunity presented before Jian Chen was something that all hallowed saint masters would lose their minds over. Even the 5 candidates could only dream of an opportunity like this. However, Jian Chen did not waver at all. He said apologetically, "Thank you for your kind intentions, senior, but I already have a teacher. I don't want to take on another master." Xianzhan was surprised. He could not help but study Jian Chen properly. He said, "Do you know what it means to become my disciple? I have never taken a disciple in the past. You'll become my only disciple if you take me as your master, so your status in comparison to the disciples of the 7 other vice leaders will only be greater." "I understand. As the saying goes, the master teaches but achievements still depend on the disciple's efforts. I have already become a disciple of my teacher, and my cultivation will solely depend on me in the future. Currently, my greatest wish is to enter the Tower of Radiance. I heard that is like the very origin of hallowed saint masters," said Jian Chen. Xianzhan glanced at Jian Chen deeply and said, "Since you've already made up your mind, I won't force you to do anything. This is my medallion. If you face any problems in the future, come find me in the Sacred Hall." Xianzhan vanished silently after leaving behind the medallion, having left the soaring cloud's peak. Jian Chen smiled as he looked at the white medallion floating before him. He knew that he would have the right to enter the Tower of Radiance now. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. The competition for chosen saint formally began on this day. The various peak lords left their mountains and gathered in the sacred hall above the clouds in the morning. The competition for chosen saint would be held in the sacred hall. Only peak lords and a select few hallowed saint masters with impressive backgrounds had the right to enter. Jian Chen stood outside his dwelling and gazed into the distance. With his eyes, he could easily see through the clouds and see what was happening 1,000,000 kilometers away. He clearly saw the various peak lords make their way over to the sacred hall at a steady pace while being surrounded by radiant saint force. Afterwards, light also permeated Jian Chen's surroundings. He condensed a pair of radiant wings and flew towards the sacred hall. "Stop! Who are you? How can you trespass the sacred hall?" Before Jian Chen had even approached the sacred hall, he was stopped by a group of violet-robed guard a certain distance away. The guards glared at Jian Chen. Jian Chen said nothing. With a flip of his hand, he took out Xianzhan's medallion. A vice leader's medallion. The expressions of the guards changed, and they cried out when they saw the medallion in Jian Chen's hands. Their gazes towards Jian Chen changed drastically as well. "May I ask if I have the right to enter the sacred hall now?" Jian Chen asked leisurely as he held the medallion. Of course, of course. This way please, this way," the group of guards immediately became polite and said in a hurry. Chapter 2289. Contending for the spot. Jian Chen stowed the medallion away and continued forwards, finally stepping into the sacred hall that stood above the clouds. When he arrived here, many hallowed Saint Masters had already gathered in the huge square. Most of these hallowed Saint Masters were radiant God Kings and Lords of Peaks. Only a select few did not possess a seven-colored soul core and had entered due to their special statuses like Jian Chen. Even though it was already crowded, it was surprisingly quiet. No one caused a ruckus. Not even soft discussions were occurring. All the hallowed Saint Masters revered the sacred hall. Senior brother? Why are you here as well? Strange, how did you get here? Biyao had arrived beside Jian Chen. Her pretty eyes were wide as she asked secretly in surprise. Biyao had an elder as a master. Her status was special, so she naturally had the right to set foot in the sacred hall. I obviously have my methods, Jian Chen smiled mysteriously and secretly replied. You're still acting mysterious. Senior brother, tell me quick. How did you get here? Didn't the guards outside stop you? Biyao became more and more curious as she questioned Jian Chen vigorously. It's time. I hereby announce that the competition for Chosen Saint has formally begun. An old elder stood on a huge stage in the center of the square as he proclaimed as such in a loud voice. That is Elder Mu Zhong. I heard from my master that Elder Mu Zhong has the greatest seniority out of all the elders. He has the greatest prestige among them, making him only second to the 8 vice leaders. At this moment, Biyao stopped her interrogation and explained things to Jian Chen. At this moment, Elder Mu Zhong continued, in the past competitions for Chosen Saint, the Chosen Saint only chooses 9 retainers after obtaining the position. However, following the discussion of the esteemed leader and the 8 vice leaders, we've made some changes to the competition this time. The 5 candidates will all choose 9 protectors as temporary retainers. Once the Chosen Saint has been selected, they will keep their 9 retainers, while the other 4 candidates will lose their right to be followed by their 9 protectors. But right now, one of the candidates, Donglin Yanxue, is missing a protector. As a result, the missing spot will be filled by a hallowed Saint Master present. The elders will now recommend people for this position. The Lord of the Snowfall Peak had died far too close to the beginning of the competition. They were unable to decide on a protector so quickly. As a result, they could only decide on it right now. The huge square immediately fell silent after Elder Mu Zhong said that. All the radiant God Kings present shut up. Only desire and eagerness burned in many of their eyes. Evidently, they all wanted this spot. The Tower of Radiance was a holy ground in the hearts of all radiant Saint Masters. It was a huge temptation towards the radiant God Kings and even the elders. However, the Tower of Radiance would only be opened between long periods of time, and even when it did open, they would not necessarily have the right to enter. As a result, becoming the retainer of the Chosen Saint was a shortcut to entering the Tower of Radiance. Naturally, they wanted the spot very much, desiring it for themselves. The eyes of the elders beside Elder Mu Zhong began to flicker with light after hearing his words. I recommend Xing Qing, the Lord of the Broken Blade Peak, to become Donglin Yanxue's 9th protector. At this moment, an elder finally stated a name. I would recommend Lu Chang, Lord of the Black Sun Peak, to fill the last spot. Why not let Yun Wandian of the Verdant Peak become the 9th protector? A few elders stated names. The people they recommended were all Lords of Peaks, and most of them possessed mid-7-colored soul cores. Afterwards, many of the elders began to argue over who should take up the last spot. They fought intensely. Donglin Yanxue's master, Mu Shui, became rather troubled when she heard them mention these names. Everyone they brought up were radiant God Kings. At a time like this, she would become a joke if she followed her disciple's request and recommended a disciple with weak cultivation. After hesitating slightly, Mu Shui said, "Everyone, why don't we let Donglin Yanxue decide for the last spot?" The prestigious elder Mu Zhong could not bear to watch the bickering between the elders any longer either. He immediately agreed to Mu Shui. Yes, let's hear Donglin Yanxue's recommendation. It's a pity that teacher Han Xian is still injured, or the last spot would definitely go to teacher, Biyao secretly said to Jian Chen. She sighed gently as she listened to the bickering between the elders. Senior brother, who do you think will get the last spot? Biyao continued with her questions. Jian Chen smiled mysteriously and said, isn't it obvious? Of course it'll be your senior brother. PSH, how is that possible? If you were a radiant god king, there might have been a chance for you. However, your current cultivation isn't even as great as mine. It would never be you. Biyao shot a glance at Jian Chen. Jian Chen smiled indifferently. He did not try to explain. At this moment, Donglin Yanxue had also stepped up onto the stage. She had been below the stage earlier, so she had clearly witnessed the bickering between the elders for the last spot. She could not help but feel troubled over this. Many of the elders eyed the last position. They wanted to take it and give it to the people they placed the highest hopes on or were the closest with. If she recommended a disciple with just a one-colored soul core at a time like this, she would definitely face the objection of all the elders. Even with her master helping her out, she probably would not be able to change the outcome. She had underestimated just how importantly the elders treated this spot. Donglin Yanxue bowed to the elders first. After a moment of hesitation, she said reluctantly, I hope I can give the last spot to Junior Changyang of the Soaring Clouds Peak. Biyao immediately became dumbfounded when she heard Donglin Yanxue's words. Her small mouth hung agape in disbelief. A strange expression covered the faces of many of the lords of the various peaks below. Changyang's name was renowned among the many mountains below the sacred hall. Even many peak lords knew his name. However, the elders on the stage all became confused. The Soaring Clouds Peak? Isn't the Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak Han Xian? Who is Changyang? An elder asked in doubt. He had never heard of Changyang before. Afterwards, a peak lord immediately took the initiative to pass on everything he knew about Changyang to the elders. And I was wondering who this Changyang was. Turns out he's a weaker disciple. You're fooling around. You're basically fooling around. All protectors are hallowed saint masters with 7 colored soul cores. Why is a disciple with a mere 1 colored soul core being thrown into the mix blindly? The mission of the protector is to protect the candidates and take part in the trials. If a disciple with a 1 colored soul core becomes a protector, who is going to be the one protecting who? Aside from Donglin Yanxue's master, all the other elders objected vehemently after learning about Changyang's identity. Chapter 2290, Arresting Changyang on the stage. Donglin Yanxue felt very helpless as she listened to the objections. With the intense objection of so many elders, there was no hope even if her master had recommended Changyang herself. After all, Changyang was simply too weak. He only had a 1-colored soul core. With such puny cultivation, it was impossible for him to receive the focus or support of any elder. If he became a protector despite such a cultivation level, the candidate would be the one protecting him instead. Donglin Yanxue sighed gently. She had already tried her best and done everything that she could. However, she was still unable to change the ultimate outcome. When she thought of the pure soul Changyang had given to her prior to all this, Donglin Yanxue could not help but feel deeply ashamed. It would be rather difficult for her to face Changyang now. She had never thought that anything would change with the competition this time. In the past competitions, the 9 retainers would be completely up to the chosen saint after they were selected from the candidates. This was the chosen saint's right. However, the 9 retainers had all been chosen by the elders and the important members of those large clans this time. Hehe, you're still thinking about Changyang? It's said that Changyang has already gone missing for a very long time. His situation is unknown. Let's ignore the fact that he might be dead right now. Even if he were in the Radiant Saint Hall, he would have no right to set foot in the Sacred Hall. Isn't it absolutely hilarious that a low-level disciple who can't even set foot in the Sacred Hall wants to be a retainer? At this moment, a voice rang out from below the stage. The white-clothed Gongjing Xian had called out fearlessly. Immediately, Gongjing Xian's voice spread across the entire square. All the hallowed Saint Masters gathered there heard his voice clearly. In the past 2 years, Gongjing Xian had been cultivating in seclusion. He had heard from his clan that they had already sent people to deal with Chang Yang. He was certain that Chang Yang was dead, as he refused to believe that a radiant Saint Master with a mere one-colored soul core could avoid being hunted down by the experts of his clan. He had only emerged yesterday, so he did not receive news of Chang Yang returning to the Radiant Saint Hall. Chang Yang doesn't even have the right to enter the sacred hall. It looks like he's just a weak disciple with no background. Not only is his puny cultivation, but he has no background either. He's just dreaming if he wants to become a retainer like that. Donglin Yanxue actually wants Chang Yang to be her 9th retainer. This sure is rather interesting. Gongjing Xian's words immediately caused a discussion between the various peak lords in the surroundings. Many radiant god kings discussed the matter secretly. Jian Chen frowned slightly. His strength was far greater than most of the radiant god kings present. Moreover, after the changes to his soul, his senses had become astonishing as well. As a result, many of the secret messages were unable to escape his senses, allowing him to hear them clearly. A cold light shone through Jian Chen's eyes. He did not try to hide anymore. He called out, "Who says I don't have the right to enter the sacred hall?" Jian Chen was loud, so he immediately attracted everyone's gazes. At that moment, not only did the radiant god kings in the surroundings look over, but even the elders who stood on the stage cast their gazes towards Jian Chen. Naturally, Donglin Yanxue discovered Jian Chen in the crowd from the stage, and a sliver of surprise flashed through her eyes immediately. Clearly, she had no idea how Jian Chen had managed to appear in the sacred hall, as he should not have had the right to enter this place according to her understanding of him. "Chang Yang, it's you." Gongjing Xian expanded the senses of his soul without any hesitation. When he discovered Jian Chen, he was dumbfounded. The fact that someone he believed to be dead was standing alive right there left him extremely surprised. However, soon afterwards, Gongjing Xian called out with a sunken face, "Chang Yang, how did you enter the sacred hall? You have no right to be here." Before Jian Chen could reply, Gongjing Xian immediately said to the elders on the stage, "Master, elders, Chang Yang has snuck his way into the sacred hall and has broken the rules of the Radiant Saint Hall. Please look into the matter, elders." On the stage, Donglin Yanxue's face changed slightly. She secretly became anxious for Jian Chen. The sacred hall was not a place that just anyone could enter. Even the peak lords could not set foot here without an important reason. If Chang Yang had really snuck in here, it would be a huge crime. Oh dear. Oh no. Senior brother, what are you going to do now? Biyao tugged Jian Chen's arm as she became anxious as well. She also believed that her senior brother had snuck in here because he indeed had no right to enter this place according to her understanding of him. Many of the elders on the stage became stern. They studied Jian Chen with piercing gazes as an invisible pressure gradually began to radiate from the stage. "Are you Chang Yang? Chang Yang, tell us the truth, how did you sneak in? If you don't give us a reasonable explanation, you're in deep trouble," Elder Mu Zhong said extremely sternly. Jian Chen remained calm. First, he clasped his fist at the stage before saying, "Disciple Chang Yang of the Soaring Clouds Peak greets the elders." "Elder Mu Zhong, you've made it a little serious. I only have a one-colored soul core, so how would I be able to bypass the strict security? I would probably be arrested by the guards outside before I could even approach the sacred hall. Naturally, I entered here honestly." "Which one of you let Chang Yang into the sacred hall?" Elder Mu Zhong looked at the other elders on the stage at the same time as he extended the senses of his soul into the sacred hall and asked the other elders. The sacred hall was a sacred existence in the hearts of all radiant saint masters. It could not be infringed on at all. If a low-level disciple had really entered the sacred hall without permission, it would be a huge crime. He would not be spared easily. The other elders all shook their heads in response to the question. "Master, please help out Chang Yang. The favor I owe to Chang Yang is extremely great. Donglin Yanxue also realized the severity of the matter, so she quickly asked Mu Shui in secret. Mu Shui shook her head gently and said sternly, Chang Yang's actions have infringed on the sacred hall. He has gone too far. I definitely cannot help him. Very soon, Elder Mu Zhong received the replies from the other elders. None of them had let Chang Yang into the hall. At that moment, Elder Mu Zhong's gaze became piercingly hostile. Guards, immediately arrest Chang Yang of the Soaring Clouds Peak for trespassing on the sacred hall, Elder Mu Zhong called out. Chapter 2291, Support. With that, two violet-robed guards immediately flew towards Jian Chen emotionlessly. On the stage, Donglin Yanxue sighed gently. She looked at the guards approaching Jian Chen as she felt helpless from the bottom of her heart. She was one of the 5 candidates and possessed a certain level of status in the Radiant Saint Hall, but she was truly unable to help Jian Chen at a time like this. Oh no, oh no. Senior brother, what do we do? Biyao was filled with anxiety. She was very worried about what Jian Chen would soon face. As a disciple of an elder, she knew all the rules of the Radiant Saint Hall extremely well. She was extremely clear on the holiness of this sacred hall. Trespassing without permission was a huge crime, and the punishment would be exceedingly severe. Humph, Chang Yang, you didn't die outside, but I definitely won't let you have it easy in the future. However, what are the people in the clan doing? Didn't they say they sent experts to kill Chang Yang? How is he still alive? Gongjing Xian sneered as a cold light flashed through his eyes. This disciple called Chang Yang is in great trouble now. He only has a one-colored soul core, yet he dares to trespass on the sacred hall. That's infringing on the sacred hall. Not only will he be severely punished, but even the Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak will be involved in the punishment as well. This is a lesson for us. When we go back, we must watch over our disciples in a stricter fashion, just in case disaster strikes unknowingly, and we're dragged down by our disciples. At the same time, the Radiant God Kings present discussed the matter with one another secretly. By now, the 2 violet-robed guards had arrived before Jian Chen. A thick, metal chain had appeared in their hands. The chain was forged from a special type of metal, and various formations were engraved within it. Once it chained up someone, not only would it seal up their cultivation, but it would also become extremely heavy, making movement virtually impossible. Only those who had committed serious crimes in the Radiant Saint Hall would have to endure such a punishment. Hold on. Just when the guards were about to chain up Jian Chen, he suddenly called out. He indifferently stared at Elder Mu Zhong, who was on the stage, and said clearly, Elder Mu Zhong, may I ask how you have determined that I am trespassing on the sacred hall and that I must be arrested? You've entered the sacred hall without the permission of any elder. That is trespassing, and a great crime, said Elder Mu Zhong. In other words, I need the permission of elders to enter the sacred hall, and even the medallion in my possession isn't enough for me to enter? Or perhaps, the right that this medallion gives me isn't as great as the permission from the elders, Jian Chen said clearly. Afterwards, he took out Xian Zhan's medallion with a flip of his hand and held it high above his head. When Elder Mu Zhong saw the medallion that symbolized a vice leader, he immediately shuddered. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Surprise filled his face. That's a vice leader's medallion. It's vice leader Xian Zhan. How is that possible? How does he possess vice leader Xian Zhan's medallion? What is his relationship with vice leader Xian Zhan? He's a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core and a nameless one at that. How does he have vice leader Xian Zhan's medallion? Not only did Elder Mu Zhong become surprised the moment he saw the medallion in Jian Chen's hand, but even the expressions of the other elders changed. They all revealed looks of disbelief. As for the Radiant God Kings below the stage, all their discussions stopped. Their gazes gathered on Jian Chen's hand, on the medallion that represented a vice leader. Their faces changed in an assortment of ways. A bizarre light filled Donglin Yanxue's eyes. She stared at the medallion in Jian Chen's hand as she became dumbfounded. Her gaze contained some doubt and confusion. The moment she saw the medallion, many questions crossed her mind. Since Chang Yang had a vice leader's medallion, he obviously had close ties to a vice leader. He could directly ask the vice leader in question if he wanted to enter the Tower of Radiance. Although the conditions for entering the Tower of Radiance were extremely strict, a vice leader could make an exception for any disciple with their authority. It would only be a matter of a few words. So, why did Chang Yang offer her a precious pure soul and go to such great lengths to become her 9th retainer just to enter the Tower of Radiance? Suddenly, Donglin Yanxue discovered that she did not seem to understand Chang Yang's intentions at all. Yanxue, don't you understand? Chang Yang wants to become your 9th retainer because he wants to get close to you. Donglin Yanxue's master, Mu Shui, seemed to be able to see through everything. She secretly told Donglin Yanxue this. Donglin Yanxue thought through every detail of when she got to know Chang Yang. She missed nothing at all. In the end, she shook her head and replied, "No. Master, Chang Yang shouldn't be someone like that. I won't say anything more about whether it's true or not. You're clever, so you have your own judgment to make." Mu Shui said, however, since Chang Yang bears the medallion of Vice Leader Xian Zhan, it means he has the support of Vice Leader Xian Zhan. With that being the case, his status is no less than yours in the Radiant Saint Hall. It might even surpass yours. Xian Zhan is the strongest out of the 8 vice leaders. The other vice leaders all have to show some respect towards Vice Leader Xian Zhan. As a result, if Chang Yang has Vice Leader Xian Zhan's support, no one will be bold enough to provoke him in the Radiant Saint Hall. Mu Shui explained to Donglin Yanxue. She was trying to stimulate Donglin Yanxue's thoughts. Donglin Yanxue remained silent. She looked at Jian Chen in the crowd with mixed feelings. At that moment, she could not help but begin doubting Jian Chen's true intentions. Was it really like what her master said, and he did it to get close to her? After all, she was the female prodigy of the Radiant Saint Hall. There were countless people who pursued her, and she had already grown accustomed to such things. However, was Chang Yang one of them as well? Gongzhang Xian's expression immediately became extremely ugly, while Baiyu's face was filled with surprise and excitement. Elder Mu Zhong glanced at Jian Chen deeply from the stage. With his strength, he could naturally tell that Jian Chen's medallion was the real deal. Meanwhile, the 2 violet-robed guards backed off obediently after Jian Chen revealed the vice leader's medallion. This was because even elders had no right to judge and punish people who possessed a vice leader's medallion. Elder Mu Zhong's order was naturally useless now. Since you possess a vice leader's medallion, you obviously have the right to enter the sacred hall, Elder Mu Zhong said to Jian Chen. Then he looked around and continued, "Let's continue to focus on the matter of the last protector." After a slight pause, he said, "After careful consideration, I have decided that the final protector will be the Lord of the Broken Blade." Elder Mu Zhong came to a halt halfway through his announcement of the final protector. Afterwards, respect that he rarely showed appeared on his face, and his old eyes were filled with extreme surprise. But very soon, Elder Mu Zhong recovered. He glanced at Jian Chen deeply once again and sucked in a deep breath. He announced, "I hereby announce that the 9th protector for Donglin Yanxue will be the disciple of the Soaring Clouds Peak, Chang Yang." Chapter 2292, World of Moon and Star. What? The last protector will actually be a Radiant Saint Master with a measly 1-colored soul core. How can that be possible? Chang Yang only has a 1-colored soul core. How can he bear such a great burden with his puny cultivation? Unbelievable. A disciple with a 1-colored soul core will actually become the protector of a candidate with a 4-colored soul core. Who is going to be protecting who? This is unprecedented. This is truly unprecedented. Protectors and retainers have always been radiant god kings throughout history. This is the first time someone with a 1-colored soul core has been chosen to bear this burden. Elder Mu Zhong's announcement immediately caused an uproar among the radiant god kings present. The outcome left them all stunned. The vice leader must have intervened. It looks like Chang Yang's relationship with the vice leader is nowhere near as simple as it seems. There's nothing we can do. Who let Chang Yang be supported by a vice leader, and vice leader Xian Zhan out of them? Although the retainers of chosen saints throughout history have all been radiant god kings, there has never been a clear rule that only radiant god kings can become the chosen saint's retainer or the candidate's protector. As a result, no rules have been broken by choosing a weaker disciple as a protector. The radiant god kings communicated with one another secretly, engaging in an intense discussion. Currently, the huge square was silent, where even a dropped pin could be heard. However, the radiant god kings present were basically making a ruckus secretly. Their gazes towards Jianchen were extremely mixed, containing jealousy and envy. The authoritative elders on the stage fell silent as well. They looked at Jianchen with extremely mixed feelings. Naturally, they realized that Elder Mu Zhong changing his decision towards the end was due to orders from above. Even though all of them disliked this outcome, including Elder Mu Zhong, none of them dared to object. They did not dare to show even a hint of displeasure. This was because they all understood that Elder Mu Zhong likely received the order from Vice Leader Xian Zhan. Let alone the elders, but even the 7 other vice leaders had to show some respect towards Vice Leader Xian Zhan's decisions. Vice Leader Xian Zhan treats Jianchen with far greater importance than I imagined. Yanxue, this is an opportunity for you. If you're able to establish a connection with Vice Leader Xian Zhan through Chang Yang, you will receive immeasurable benefits in the future, Mu Shui told Donglin Yanxue secretly. She no longer dared to underestimate Chang Yang. Donglin Yanxue stood on the stage as she looked at Chang Yang standing among the crowd. She experienced mixed feelings as she remained silent. How did this happen? To another side of the crowd, Gongjing Xian became completely dumbstruck. This result also left Bai Yu dumbfounded. Her mouth hung open as disbelief covered her face. I hereby announce that the competition for Chosen Saint formally begins. Candidates and protectors, enter the stage immediately. At this moment, Elder Mu Zhong's voice rang out once again. With that, the 4 other candidates and the several dozen protectors immediately flew onto the stage. Junior sister, I'll be leaving first, Jianchen said to Bai Yu before using Radiant Saint Force to make his way onto the stage under the envious gazes of all the Radiant God Kings. Very soon, over 40 protectors stood in 5 groups behind their respective candidates. However, perhaps coincidentally, their gazes would always sweep past Jianchen. Aside from the 5 candidates, everyone else on the stage was either a Radiant God King or an Elder. Jianchen truly stood out by standing there with his measly one-colored soul core. Elder Mu Zhong stared at everyone with shining eyes and said, "Next, all of you will be sent into a miniature world. There are various vicious beasts in the miniature world. The strongest of them are only mid-god kings. Your mission as protectors is to keep your candidates safe in there." Afterwards, Elder Mu Zhong looked at the 5 candidates and said, "As for your mission as candidates, you must find Radiant Origin Pearls in the miniature world. Radiant Origin Pearls are extremely special, a natural occurrence from the Tower of Radiance. As a result, they cannot be found with the senses of the soul. Only those with great talent and great affinity for Radiant Saint Force can sense them within a certain distance. This round is extremely important to you all. The 2 who find the most Radiant Origin Pearls will face each other in battle. The remaining 3 will be eliminated. Remember, this round is limited to a year. During this time, the 5 of you are forbidden from engaging in life-threatening battles, or your status as candidate will be revoked." Elder Mu Zhong became solemn towards the end. Afterwards, Elder Mu Zhong took out an ancient seal. As soon as the ancient seal appeared, it radiated with a powerful pulse of energy and the power of space. It interfered with the operation of space in the region. Elder Mu Zhong waved the ancient seal towards the sky. Immediately, the space above the stage pulsed violently. A huge spatial gate gradually opened. This miniature world is called the World of Moon and Star. In order to prevent the appearance of vicious beasts that are too powerful, Elder He Tian will be going along with you. Now, all competitors enter the World of Moon and Star immediately. With that, the 5 candidates and the 45 protectors mobilized their radiant saint force. The protectors rose up behind their candidate and charged towards the spatial gate. When Jian Shen stepped into the world of moon and star, he discovered that everyone who had entered with him now stood on a mountain. The mountain seemed to have been severed by someone, so it had a small, flat top. Jian Shen closed his eyes and clearly sensed that the laws of the world here were incomplete. Compared to the saints' world, this entire world was at a much lower level. The space here is just too fragile. If I use my full strength, I can easily rip through it. Infinite prime is the probably limit of what the world of moon and star can endure. If chaotic primes set foot here, they can easily collapse this place. Jian Shen sensed the situation of this miniature world quietly. Chapter 2293, Invincible God King, 1, Welcome to the World of Moon and Star. The world of Moon and Star is a medium-sized miniature world containing incomplete yin and yang and the 5 elements. It is called the world of Moon and Star because there's only a single star and moon in this world. There is no sun. An old voice rang out from in front of them just as everyone was studying the world of moon and star curiously. A bald old man sat before everyone. His appearance was nothing special, but he was extremely skinny. Even though he wore a set of large white robes, people were still able to see his stick-like figure. Greetings to Elder He Tian. Donglin Yanshue, Gongzhang Xian Bin, and De, and Shida all became polite and bowed towards the old man. Many of the radiant god kings present knew nothing about the old man's identity. On the other hand, as the 5 candidates had the right to enter the sacred hall and come in contact with the elders very often, they knew many of them. The protectors behind the candidates all bowed to show their respect after learning of the old man's identity. Elder He Tian waved his hand and said, Don't use these etiquettes with me. I'll tell you the situation of the world of moon and star in detail now. Elder He Tian continued, even though the world of moon and star is a medium-sized world, it is extremely vast. Even with the senses of my soul, I can only envelope a tenth of the world of moon and star. A few vicious beasts live in the world of moon and star. Due to the special environment here, the vicious beasts have very limited intelligence. Many of them have great strength but have yet to become self-conscious. They completely act based on instincts. Before you came here, the elders have already screened through the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star. They've killed off all the primordial realm beasts, so the remaining vicious beasts here are late god kings at most. All of you candidates will take a medallion. When you face life-threatening danger, immediately activate the medallion. No matter how far away you are, I will be able to sense the location of the medallion immediately. Then I can come save you. However, once the medallion is activated, it will mean your elimination from the competition for chosen saint. Alright, I've said everything. You can set off by yourselves now. Obtaining more radiant origin pearls than the others will be up to your own luck. The gateway will open once again in a year's time, and at that time, you just need to gather here. Elder He Tian sat on the ground without moving at all. He solemnly passed on this information before waving his hand and dispersing everyone. Afterwards, the 5 candidates left the mountain with their protectors. They did not travel together. Instead, they each chose a different direction to head off into. Even though there were many God King level vicious beasts in the world of moon and star, the candidates showed no fear at all. This was because most of their protectors were radiant God Kings, and their battle prowess was extremely great. They were hallowed saint masters known to be invincible among those of the same cultivation level. With so many hallowed saint masters, they were confident about putting up a fight against even peak God King beasts. Chang Yang, you're the weakest here. Remember, you can't run around recklessly. None of the vicious beasts here are something that you can handle. At this moment, Donglin Yanshue suddenly turned her head and said to Jian Chen. She looked at Jian Chen's face, which seemed ordinary due to his disguise, with her dark, beautiful eyes. Her gaze contained undetectable mixed feelings. Ever since she met Jian Chen for the first time beside the moon's reflection lake, she had felt that Jian Chen was always at ease and filled with confidence. He was mature and composed, the type who would not panic even if the sky collapsed. His bearing differed greatly from those so-called prodigies she saw from day to day. Moreover, whenever she saw Jian Chen, his gaze towards her would always remain tranquil. There were no emotions at all, completely different from the radiant Saint Masters who pursued her. As a result, Donglin Yanxue had become certain that Jian Chen had approached her and even offered her a precious pure soul for the simple purpose of entering the Tower of Radiance. After all, the Tower of Radiance was a holy land that all radiant Saint Masters strived to enter. As a radiant Saint Master, it only made sense for Jian Chen to want to enter the Tower of Radiance. However, ever since Jian Chen took out Vice Leader Xian Zhan's medallion, Donglin Yanshue's doubts towards Jian Chen purposefully trying to get close to her sprang up again. Coupled with her master's explanation, Donglin Yanxue basically believed it firmly now. Entering the Tower of Radiance with the Vice Leader's medallion was nothing difficult at all, so why did Jian Chen offer her a pure soul and go to such lengths to become her protector? After all, she was only one of the 5 candidates. Even Donglin Yanxue was not completely confident about successfully becoming the chosen saint in the end. Despite knowing this, Jian Chen still took such action. It became quite obvious to clever people that his actions were just to closen his relationship with Donglin Yanxue. Jian Chen rubbed his nose when he heard Donglin Yanshue's words. He was left speechless. He had never thought that someone only equivalent to a deity would try to protect him. However, Donglin Yanxue did not look at Jian Chen for very long. She shifted her gaze rather indifferently. After becoming certain that Jian Chen was just trying to get close to her, her heart became rather cold. Her distance from Jian Chen increased. She found this to be very repulsive, and the upright image that Jian Chen had left in her heart through his various unconventional actions collapsed at that moment. As a result, she treated Jian Chen no differently from the other people who pursued her. Junior Changyang, you fan, am a little older than you, so I'll just call you Junior. You only need to follow behind Junior Yanxue in the world of moon and star. You don't need to worry about anything else. Leave it up to us, said a protector beside Donglin Yanxue. He was a middle-aged man and a mid-god king. Jian Chen knew a few things about his identity. He was the lord of the Cloud Mist Peak, Yufan. His cultivation was even greater than Han Xian and Zhou Yuan's. That's right. Leave all the vicious beasts we come across to us. Junior Changyang, you only need to take good care of Junior Yanxue, added a few more protectors afterwards. They all smiled and treated Jian Chen politely or even respectfully. Even though Jian Chen was the weakest of them all in terms of cultivation and needed the protection of others despite being a protector himself, none of the 8 protectors dared to offend him seeing how Vice Leader Xian Zhan had supported him. They even tried their best to get close to Jian Chen. They all knew that it must have been Vice Leader Xian Zhan's secret arrangement for Jian Chen to become a protector, or it would have been impossible for him to make it past the obstacle of Elder Mu Zhong. The peak lords who thought they were experienced and insightful naturally knew the reason. Jian Chen and the protectors exchanged a few pleasantries casually. Afterwards, he looked at Donglin Yanxue and said, "Can you sense where the radiant origin pearls are?" Jian Chen asked because he could already vaguely sense a pulse that was extremely similar to radiant saint force in a certain location up ahead. The pulse was extremely obscure and wondrous. He could sense the pulse, but it was not because of how great his senses were. Instead, it was a result of the laws of the hallowed he comprehended resonating with the pulse slightly. Donglin Yanxue looked ahead coldly and said, "You can't even sense these radiant origin pearls with the senses of your soul, so how can it be that easy to sense where they are?" Chapter 2294, Invincible God King, 2. It looks like Donglin Yanxue has not sensed this pulse that's extremely similar to radiant saint force. However, I can't be too certain that this pulse is a radiant origin pearl, Jian Chen thought. He had already learnt from Elder Mu Zhong that the radiant origin pearl was something from the Tower of Radiance. It was extremely special and could not be discovered with the senses of the soul. Only those with great talent and affinity for radiant saint force could sense their existence. These people with great talent and affinity for radiant saint force basically referred to the geniuses who were assigned stars. 9-star geniuses were the greatest talents in the Radiant Saint Hall. They were the ones taking part in the competition for chosen saint this time. If this pulse really does come from the Radiant Origin Pearl, doesn't that mean my talent is greater than Donglin Yenshue's? Jianchen thought. He stared right ahead. The pulse he sensed came from 100 kilometers away. At this moment, their group was basically traveling in a straight line, directly towards the pulse's location. They hovered around 20 meters above the ground as they traveled. Even though everyone had slowed down for Jianchen's sake, 100 kilometers was still nothing. Very soon, their group arrived within a range of 20 kilometers from the pulse's source. At this moment, Jianchen began to take note of Donglin Yenshue's reactions secretly, but he discovered no changes. She had not discovered the pulse. When they were 3 kilometers from the pulse, the group's direction shifted slightly, and they gradually drew further and further away from the pulse's location. Jianchen stopped without any hesitation and said, "Wandering around aimlessly like this isn't a good idea. Let's take a break and discuss our plans first." With that, Jianchen dispersed the radiant saint force around him and descended to the ground without anyone's consent. The 8 protectors behind Donglin Yenshue immediately became troubled. They glanced at Jianchen then back at Donglin Yenshue as they began to hesitate. They did not know whether they should continue onwards behind Donglin Yenshue or stop like Jianchen. The 8 of them understood that although they were the protectors of the candidate, they obviously had to protect Jianchen since Vice Leader Xian Zhan was bold enough to allow him into the world of Moon and Star with a one-colored soul core. In the world of Moon and Star, there were many vicious beasts, with many at the level of God Kings. They truly did not dare to leave Jianchen alone. If an accident occurred, and the Vice Leader came looking for the people responsible, it would not be a burden that they could bear. However, Donglin Yenshue frowned slightly. She looked at Jianchen with quite some displeasure and said, "The Radiant Origin Pearls are extremely difficult to find. All searching methods are useless. Finding the pearls is completely up to luck, so do you really think these useless plans can help to find Radiant Origin Pearls? It's better than running around aimlessly," Jianchen said casually. He glanced around and discovered a 10-meter-tall boulder 3 kilometers above the pulse's origins. Jianchen's eyes lit up. He said, "There's a rock there. Let me sit down first and come up with a plan so that we can collect some Radiant Origin Pearls." After saying that, Jianchen directly flew towards the rock in the distance. Donglin Yenshue could not help but become greatly displeased when she saw Jianchen ignore the bigger picture and continue to act as he wished in the world of Moon and Star. Ever since her impression of Jianchen shattered, she had started to view him in a completely different light. Jianchen's actions right now repulsed Donglin Yenshue very much. From Donglin Yenshue's perspective, Jianchen's current actions were basically a waste of her precious time. After all, they only had 1 year to find the Radiant Origin Pearls. Every second was extremely precious. Jianchen had already arrived before the rock now. He sat on it leisurely. The pulse he had sensed earlier came from below the rock. At such proximity, Jianchen could sense with even greater clarity that the object producing the pulse was a milky white pearl hidden beneath the soil. That should be the Radiant Saint Pearl. Jianchen had basically confirmed that this was the pearl they were looking for. At this moment, Donglin Yenshue flew over with the 8 protectors, feeling displeased and impatient. Jianchen sat on the rock and silently sensed Donglin Yenshue's distance from the pearl. He wanted to learn how close she needed to be before she could sense the existence of the Radiant Saint Pearl. Finally, when Donglin Yenshue was a kilometer away from him, her expression changed. In the next moment, surprise and joy flooded her eyes. She turned into a white streak of light and hurried towards the rock that Jianchen sat on as quickly as she could. She called out to Jianchen, "Changyang, move." "What?" As if he had been caught off guard, Jianchen stared at Donglin Yenshue blankly in bewilderment. "I told you to move. I want to shatter that rock." If you still don't move, don't blame me for hurting you, Donglin Yanxue called out. The laws of the hallowed had already condensed around her. She created a radiant palm, sending it towards the rock. Seeing this, Jian Chen's expression finally changed. Without any hesitation, he directly leapt off the rock. Although it was impossible for Donglin Yanxue to harm him, he had to play the role of a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core. Bang! Just when Jian Chen separated from the rock, the boulder loudly shattered from Donglin Yanshue's strike. It was reduced to flying rubble. A resplendent white light shone out from beneath the boulder. A thumb-sized, white pearl lay there quietly. A radiant origin pearl. Donglin Yanxue cried out. She took a step forward and picked up the pearl in joy. So that's a radiant origin pearl. It can only be seen with the naked eye, and it's impossible to detect it with the senses of the soul. The radiant origin pearl is truly wondrous. At this moment, the 8 protectors had also arrived. They all studied the radiant saint pearl with curiosity as they clicked their tongues in admiration. Suddenly, Donglin Yanxue looked at Jian Chen with suspicion and said, "Chang Yang, I sensed something from almost a kilometer away, while you were only 10 meters away from the radiant origin pearl. Didn't you sense its existence from such a close distance? Don't forget that you're a 9-star genius, while I'm only a 1-star genius," Jian Chen said helplessly. He did not want to expose his talent so soon. You can't blame Junior Chang Yang for this. The radiant origin pearl is just too hard to sense. Even with my 7-colored soul core, I could only sense it vaguely from around 100 meters away, a protector said after Jian Chen finished talking. Sigh. With my talent as a 3-star genius and my 7-colored soul core, I could only vaguely sense its existence from 10 meters away. It only makes sense for Junior Chang Yang to fail to discover the radiant origin pearl, another protector added shamefully, dispersing the doubts Donglin Yanxue had towards Jian Chen perfectly. Donglin Yanshue's doubts mostly subsided after she heard the 2 protectors' words. She stowed the radiant origin pearl away and said to Jian Chen, "Chang Yang, what good plans do you have? Hurry up and tell me, don't waste too much time." Chapter 2295, Invincible God King, 3. Jian Chen had obviously detected the change in Donglin Yanshue's treatment of him, but he did not care about it. From his perspective, it was enough as long as Donglin Yanxue could become the chosen saint, which would give him the right to enter the Tower of Radiance. Jian Chen did not know that Vice Leader Xian Zhan had the authority to let any Radiant Saint Master into the Tower of Radiance. However, even if he knew, he would not have been willing to approach the Vice Leader directly. Currently, Jian Chen's identity was extremely sensitive, so he was unwilling to get too involved with the Vice Leader. Otherwise, he would definitely cause a lot of problems for the Vice Leader once his martial soul force was exposed. I believe all the places where powerful vicious beasts roam around have radiant origin pearls. We cannot detect the radiant origin pearls with the senses of the soul, but we can detect these vicious beasts. As a result, we only need to find these vicious beasts, suggested Jian Chen. The radiant origin pearls came from the Tower of Radiance. They appeared in the world of Moon and Star because the elders had brought them in. Since searching for the pearls was a test set by the elders, there would definitely be a certain level of difficulty. It would not be as simple as leaving it up to luck. Donglin Yanxue immediately frowned when she heard that. Some powerful beasts in the world of Moon and Star were as powerful as God Kings. If they truly went and provoked these vicious beasts, let alone Jian Chen struggling to keep himself safe with his measly 1-colored soul core, but even she with her 4-colored soul core would be reduced to an ant-like existence. They could not even endure the shockwaves of battles against vicious beasts of such a level. Junior Chang Yang is right. There are probably radiant origin pearls within the territories of powerful vicious beasts. Junior Yanxue, why don't we search for these vicious beasts? Don't worry, Junior Yanxue. There are 8 radiant god kings here. Dealing with those vicious beasts with lacking intellect will be a piece of cake, yeah. Even if we come across peak god king vicious beasts, 2 or 3 of us will be enough to kill them easily. They're nothing to worry about. Radiant origin pearls are hard to find, but the vicious beasts are just too easy. Meanwhile, the 8 protectors showed no fear. They all spoke up with confidence. The 8 of them were all hallowed Saint Masters. As soon as they used their laws of the hallowed, their battle prowess would be even greater than fighters of the same level. As a result, they did not take the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star seriously at all. Alright then. Let's go find those vicious beasts. Donglin Yanxue hesitated, but she was persuaded in the end. She agreed to the suggestion. Afterwards, the 8 protectors became the ones leading the way. The senses of their God King level souls spread out in all directions as they began to search for the vicious beasts in the surroundings. At the same time, to another side of the world of moon and star, the group led by Gongjing Xian had stopped on some plains. 5 of the 9 protectors stood guard in the distance as Gongjing Xian gathered with the 4 other protectors. Gongjing Xian frowned heavily. Currently, his face was sunken. Ever since he entered the world of moon and star, his sunken face had never eased up. You're either the people closest to our Gongjing clan, or you have submitted to our Gongjing clan. Help me think of a way for Changyang to die in the world of moon and star, Gongjing Xian said with a darkened expression. Aside from the 5 other people, all of his protectors belonged to his Gongjing clan, so he placed great trust in the 4 of them. The 4 protectors around Gongjing Xian frowned and became troubled. If it were before, even if the Radiant Saint Hall discovered that we killed Changyang, it would be nothing. With our status, the disciplinary hall won't be able to do anything to us. They'll just give us a symbolic punishment. But now, who knows how Changyang is connected to Vice Leader Xian Zhan? His status is different. Killing him will lead to consequences far too severe. If Vice Leader Xian Zhan looks into this matter personally, probably even young Master Xian will be implicated, yeah. Vice Leader Xian Zhan isn't as easy to deal with as the 7 other Vice Leaders, and he's also the last person in the Radiant Saint Hall you'd want to provoke apart from the leader. Young Master Xian, you must not let your emotions control you. Young Master Xian, you have to calm down. Changyang has the support of Vice Leader Xian Zhan, so you can't provoke him no matter what. You know exactly who Vice Leader Xian Zhan is. He's an expert that even the ancestor of our Gongjing clan has to treat with courtesy. If Vice Leader Xian Zhan decides to punish you, do you think the ancestor will personally show himself and protect you despite running the risk of offending Vice Leader Xian Zhan? Young Master Xian, you must not be reckless. Even if we ignore the potentially severe consequences and send all 9 of us against Changyang, it's not possible for us to kill him because the 8 protectors around Donglin Yanxue will definitely treat Changyang's safety with even greater importance than Donglin Yanxue herself. They'll throw their lives on the line to keep him safe. Moreover, who knows whether young Master Xian's 5 other protectors will listen to the young master and attack Changyang. That's an uncertain factor too. The 4 protectors around Gongjing Xian tried to persuade him to give up on the thought of killing Changyang here. Gongjing Xian only had a 4-colored soul core. With his cultivation level, he was basically dreaming if he wanted to kill Changyang who 8 protectors guarded. He would need his protectors to take action in the end, but if they really attacked Jianchen, disaster would be waiting for them after they left the world of moon and star. In their eyes, killing Changyang was basically digging their own graves. Moreover, they did not have any particularly great grievances with Changyang. They were naturally unwilling to die a pointless death for Gongjing Xian. Gongjing Xian's face became uglier and uglier. With the cultivations of the Radiant God Kings, there was no need for them to clash with the protectors around Donglin Yanxue at all to kill Changyang. They only needed to approach him amiably, then deal a killing strike, easily claiming Changyang's life. They all declined because they were afraid of offending Vice Leader Xian Zhan. Young Master Xian, the priority is the position of Chosen Saint. Let's quickly search for the Radiant Origin Pearls instead. 3 people will be directly eliminated in the first round of the trials. Young Master Xian cannot be eliminated here. A Radiant God King changed the topic to redirect Gongjing Xian's attention. Yeah. Young Master Xian, searching for radiant origin pearls is the priority right now. There are definitely radiant origin pearls where the powerful vicious beasts prowl in the world of moon and star. The young master needs to take action quickly, or the 4 others will take the lead, another protector added. If that's the case, let's set off immediately then. Let's find the radiant origin pearls first. Gongjing Xian also knew it was impossible to get these people to kill Jian Chen. He stood up with a sunken face and gathered his protectors before leaving the place. At the same time, the groups led by Xian Bin, and Da, and Shida all directed their attention towards the powerful vicious beasts in the world of moon and star in their respective areas. Clearly, Jian Chen was not the only one who had thought of this. Chapter 2296, Invincible God King, 4. Sitting on the mountain at the entrance to the world of moon and star, Elder He Tian slowly opened his eyes. He looked towards the locations of the 5 candidates as he could not help but smile mysteriously. He muttered to himself, they've finally thought about dealing with those vicious beasts. That's right. There are indeed radiant origin pearls where the powerful vicious beasts roam, except those vicious beasts aren't as simple as you have imagined. They're not going to be that easy to deal with. It's time for you to suffer a little now. When his thoughts reached here, Elder He Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He abruptly stood up and stared into the distance. He became stern as he said, what powerful ripples of space. Someone has opened the gateway to the world of moon and star. Who is it? Before he even finished speaking, Elder He Tian had turned into a streak of silver-white lightning as he shot off into the distance as quickly as he could. 100 kilometers away, space distorted heavily. Countless cracks intersected as powerful pulses in space radiated outwards. This lasted for just a few seconds before the space suddenly shattered like a mirror, forming a pitch-black spatial tunnel. A figure shone with resplendent light inside the tunnel. He strode over firmly, entering the world of moon and star through the spatial tunnel. After the figure emerged, the spatial tunnel behind him vanished, and the shattered space also began to repair itself. Soon, it returned to its previous state. At this moment, the resplendent light around the figure gradually vanished, revealing his appearance. He was a young man who seemed to be in his 20s. Dressed in azure robes, his eyes shone like the moon and the stars. His firm, handsome face possessed a weathered sense that one could only possess after going through many trials, including baptisms of blood. The young man hovered in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked around with his shining eyes, studying his surroundings. He muttered to himself, there's a single star and moon in the sky. It looks like I'm in the right place. This is the world of moon and star, the place where the Radiant Saint Hall has chosen to hold a trial for selecting their chosen saint. As he spoke, he glanced to one side casually, and his lips gradually curled into a cold smile. I never thought an elder would be here as well. The Radiant Saint Hall has truly prepared a huge gift for me. With that, a white streak of light shot over like a bolt of lightning. It arrived in a single instance and revealed Elder He Tian. Elder He Tian's presence surged as laws of the hallowed revolved around him. He arrived while emitting massive pressure, but his face changed drastically the moment he saw the young man's appearance. He cried out, Qing Shan, it's you. The young man smiled. Coupled with his handsome face, it was extremely enchanting and very warm, enough to steal the hearts of countless young women in the world. However, Elder He Tian did not feel warm at all. Instead, his heart turned cold. As if he were facing a great opponent, his face had become extremely stern. I never thought you would know me. It looks like my name is very renowned in the Radiant Saint Hall, smiled the young man. Qing Shan, how did you get here? And why have you come? Elder He Tian called out solemnly. Even though he had already condensed a soul tree and was an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall, possessing a cultivation equivalent to the primordial realm, he did not dare to become careless at all when he faced this young man who was only a god king. Qing Shan's name had already spread through the saints' world long ago. Many people knew about him. He could suppress all the God Kings in the Saints' world and hold the position of first on the God King's throne firmly. There were even many rumors that he had fought experts at the primordial realm. These colorful rumors made the many God Kings and some primordial realm experts come to believe that Qing Shan was an invincible God King since quite some time ago. He was publicly acknowledged to be the most powerful God King. However, Qing Shan's name hung high up on the Radiant Saint Hall's bounty list. All the elders knew his name, and they all resented him deeply. They treated him as the greatest problem in the way of the Radiant Saint Hall's future. This was because an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall had died to Qing Shan's hands before. However, when Elder He Tian personally faced Qing Shan, he immediately thought of the various rumors, and his heart began to shiver. Is there a need for me to tell you how I entered the world of Moon and Star? However, I can tell you why I've come. Qing Shan looked at Elder He Tian, and his smile gradually turned cold as he said, I've come naturally for the 5 candidates. I will make the Radiant Saint Hall go without a chosen saint this time. Qing Shan, don't you dare. Elder He Tian's face changed drastically when he heard that. I, Qing Shan, am even bold enough to kill an elder of your Radiant Saint Hall. Why won't I dare to kill a few candidates? However, one more elder will be dying at my hands today, Qing Shan sneered. With that, he directly struck out, sending a palm strike towards Elder He Tian. Qing Shan's hand carried a mysterious power. It was able to affect the souls of his target through invisible means. Immediately, Elder He Tian's soul became unstable and jittery when he faced Qing Shan's attack. His vision also blurred slightly as waves of dizziness began to overwhelm him. Martial soul force, Elder He Tian cried out. He bit the tip of his tongue to forcefully gather his concentration using the pain. Laws of the Hallowed gathered around him as he engaged in an intense battle against Qing Shan. Elder He Tian was only equivalent to a first heavenly layer infinite prime, so he did not dare to show any carelessness before Qing Shan. He used his full strength right from the start, without holding back anything at all. However, as soon as he clashed with Qing Shan, Elder He Tian's heart sank. The martial soul force in Qing Shan's hand was already enough to affect his soul to a certain degree when he struck out. However, when they truly clashed, the influence from the martial soul force became even greater. He felt like someone had used a huge hammer to strike his soul heavily. Although Elder He Tian could block Qing Shan's attacks, he could do nothing about the impact from the martial soul force. He was forced to endure it. Moreover, this impact would not just occur once or twice. He would have to endure it every time he clashed with Qing Shan. If they continued to fight, his soul would eventually reach a point where it could not last any longer even if his strength greatly exceeded Qing Shan's. Marital soul force is indeed profound. I can't defend against it at all. I need to finish this battle fast, or I'll definitely be defeated, thought Elder He Tian. He struggled to imagine just how severe the consequences would be if he were defeated. He was afraid that it would truly turn out as Qing Shan had said, where the current generation would be left in an awkward state with no chosen saint. As Elder He Tian engaged in an intense battle against Qing Shan, the group of 10 led by Donglin Yanxue finally found a powerful vicious beast 2 million kilometers away. Naturally, an intense battle erupted. Among Donglin Yanxue's 8 protectors, one of them currently faced a bull-like vicious beast that stood over 30 meters tall in a battle of life or death. The bull-like vicious beast was extremely large. It was like a hill as it stood there, making the hallowed Saint Master who fought against it seem as insignificant as an ant. However, even though they differed greatly in size, they were evenly matched in their battle. The laws of the Hallowed clashed with the brutal strength of the beast, erupting with deafening booms. Powerful energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, stirring up the origin energy in the area while kicking up dust and creating great cracks in the ground. This was a battle between God Kings. The shockwave spread for several tens of thousand kilometers. Without the corresponding strength, it was impossible for one to get close to the battle. 100 kilometers away, Donglin Yanxue stood beside Jian Qin. She stared at the intense battle up ahead as the 7 other protectors all stood around Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue to protect them. The 2 at the very front worked together to maintain an energy barrier, blocking the shockwaves from the battle up ahead. If it were not for the barrier, it would have been impossible for Donglin Yanxue to stand so close with her cultivation that was only equivalent to a deity. She would have been pushed far away by the shockwaves from the battle between man and beast. At this moment, all of them paid close attention to the battle. They all frowned, and the faces of the 7 other protectors became rather ugly. How can this vicious beast be so powerful? It's clearly just an early god king, yet it can hold its ground against Chen Feng, who has a mid-7 colored soul core. Qing Feng's a hallowed saint master after all. Hallowed saint masters are much more powerful than fighters of the same cultivation level in the saints' world. With Qin Feng's cultivation that is equivalent to a mid-god king, he can defeat mid-god king fighters easily, yet he has remained matched for so long against a vicious beast that is only an early god king. How are the vicious beasts of the world of moon and stars so powerful? The 7 protectors who guarded Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen discussed the matter sternly. The scene before them had upheaved their understandings completely. A strange light flickered in the eyes of Jian Chen. He stared at the colossal vicious beast with brimming interest before looking at the sky from time to time. He showed both surprise and doubt. After fusing with a strand of true chaotic force, his soul had changed, giving him various abilities. Currently, he could clearly sense a sliver of power that belonged to the world of moon and star fuse into the vicious beast as it fought, allowing the beast to hold its ground against a hallowed saint master that was akin to a mid-god king while only being an early god king. The vicious beast before me can actually use the power of the world of moon and star? Jian Chen was visibly moved by this discovery. He sank into his thoughts. This was not as simple as controlling the powers of the surroundings. The power of the world of moon and star had fused with the vicious beast, assisting it in battle. It was similar to when the artifact spirit controlled the power of the Neptunian Divine Palace to protect Xiaoman. The power of the Neptunian Divine Palace came from the structure itself, yet the power that assisted the vicious beast came from the world of moon and star. It was definitely not as simple as manipulating the origin energy that permeated the surroundings. Is this an innate ability of the vicious beasts, or is the world of moon and star similar to the Neptunian Divine Palace, especially taking care of these vicious beasts? Jian Chen sank into his thoughts. It would be fine if it were the former, but he could not help but feel his heart sink if it were the latter. However, I can't eliminate the possibility of this being the Radiant Saint Hall's handiwork. After all, this is a place where a trial is being held. Since it's a trial, it must have a certain level of difficulty and challenge, Jian Chen guessed. However, at this moment, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he looked behind him. There was an intense battle between primordial realm experts in the distance. Even though it was far away, he was still able to sense the surging energy ripples from the fight between the primordial realm experts as soon as they erupted. At that moment, Jian Chen's gaze became piercing. As if he could see through space, he directly viewed what was happening over 2 million kilometers away. With Jian Chen's current cultivation, seeing something 2 million kilometers away was no longer a problem. He could clearly see Elder He Tian, who watched over this entire place, engage in a battle with an azure-robed man. It's Martial's soul force. It's actually the pulses from Martial's soul force. Jian Chen called out inside. At that moment, he fell into emotional turmoil. He struggled to remain calm. He possessed Martial's soul force himself, but he was unable to find a cultivation method for it. As a result, his Martial soul force was still puny. Jian Chen immediately recognized the marital soul force used during the fight between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian. However, the protectors behind Jian Chen were all focusing on the vicious beast up ahead, so none of them discovered the change to Jian Chen's expression. That young man is only a god king, yet he slightly has the upper hand against Elder He Tian. There's only one god king so powerful and uses martial soul force, Qing Shan, who ranks first on the god king's throne, Jian Chen thought. Very soon, he deduced the young man's identity, and the light in his eyes flickered. The battle between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian grew in intensity. It erupted with shockwaves that were even more terrifying. Eventually, the 7 protectors around Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue sensed it. Immediately, the 7 protectors looked behind them. Their visions were nowhere near as great as Jian Chen's, so they were unable to see so far away with their naked eyes. As a result, they all used the senses of their souls. Even though they could envelop the region easily with the senses of their souls as mid-god kings, the region was filled with a fierce storm of energy, which prevented their senses from getting close. However, they were still able to sense Elder He Tian's presence and the power of the laws of the hallowed within the storm of energy. As a result, their expressions immediately changed. Oh no, there's a primordial realm expert in the world of moon and star. They seem to be on par with Elder He Tian. This is not good. How is that possible? Haven't the elders cleansed out all the experts who've reached the primordial realm? How did they miss one? Since the primordial realm expert is fighting with Elder He Tian, it must be an enemy. If Elder He Tian gives way, we'll be faced with a disaster. The 7 protectors all cried out as their faces became extremely ugly. Clearly, they had realized the severity of the matter. Chapter 2298, The Name of Qing Shan. Although Donglin Yanxue was unable to sense the shockwaves of the battle in the distance due to her limited cultivation, she learned quite a lot from the cries of the protectors, and her expression changed as a result. Quick, send some more people over and finish the battle fast, Donglin Yanxue called out. Immediately, 3 protectors out of the 7 remaining charged towards the vicious beast. The 4 left were responsible for Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue's safety. The 7 protectors were all hallowed saint masters with mid-7 colored soul cores. Now that 4 of them were working together against a vicious beast that was only an early god king, it was impossible for the beast to last long, regardless of how extraordinary the beast had become thanks to the assistance of the world. Soon, the colossal beast emitted a chilling cry and had its head cut off by a blade of light condensed from the laws of the hallowed the 4 protectors wielded. It collapsed onto the ground with a weight of several dozen tons, causing the earth to tremble and dust to get kicked up. Quick, look for the radiant origin pearl. The moment the beast died, Jian Chen immediately called out to Donglin Yanxue. Jian Chen had become stern as well. The hallowed saint masters were unable to observe the battle in the distance, but he was able to see it clearly. Qing Shan's strength was unimaginably great. As a god king, he had actually managed to gain the upper hand against a primordial realm expert like Elder He Tian, completely suppressing the elder. From a single glance, Jian Chen could tell that unless an accident happened, Elder He Tian's defeat was only a matter of time. As a result, he became heavy-hearted. If Elder He Tian was unable to stop Qing Shan, it would be impossible for the protectors to be Qing Shan's opponent even if they worked together. Donglin Yanxue did not hesitate at all after hearing Jian Chen call out. She immediately flew towards the nest of the vicious beast while surrounded in radiant saint force. Jian Chen and the 8 protectors followed behind her closely. As soon as they reached a kilometer away from the nest, a gleam of light shone through Donglin Yanxue's eyes. She could already sense the existence of the radiant origin pearl, so she immediately sped up. A while later, the group entered the vicious beast's nest. It was a huge cave, gloomy and damp. A thumb-sized radiant origin pearl had been wedged in the rock at the top of the cave. It shone with a gentle light, providing some weak luminance to the gloomy cave. A protector took action. He extended a finger, and a strand of power from the laws of the hallowed shot out from his fingertip. It struck the rock above and allowed the radiant origin pearl to fall into his hand. Then he passed it to Donglin Yanxue. Donglin Yanxue stowed away the radiant origin pearl. Just when she wanted to check the surroundings, Jian Chen's voice rang out, "We can't stay here for long. We must leave immediately." Donglin Yanxue frowned when she heard that. She was the candidate. She was the only one in charge here. Since when did Chang Yang become the one giving out orders? Donglin Yanxue looked at Jian Chen with impatience. Right when she wanted to say something, the expressions of the 8 protectors beside her all changed. Oh no, they're heading towards us. Those are the shockwaves from primordial realm experts. Once they're too close to us, even we will be injured. Not only will we be injured, but we won't even be able to protect ourselves. No, we have to leave quick. They're moving far too quickly. Leave. If we don't go, it'll be too late, and we'll end up suffering. The 8 protectors all cried out. All of them had become extremely stern. They had been observing the distance with the senses of their souls. Even though they were unable to approach the center of the battle, they could clearly tell where Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were. The cries from the 8 protectors immediately made Donglin Yanxue lose interest in bickering with Jian Chen over this tiny matter. She immediately left with everyone. The 8 protectors clearly demonstrated the intense uneasiness in their hearts. As soon as they emerged from the cave, they controlled Radiant Saint Force to envelope Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue without any explanation before shooting off into the distance as quickly as they could. At this moment, even Donglin Yanxue could hear the thunderous booms in the distance. The sounds became louder and louder. It was getting closer and closer. Donglin Yanxue's heart sank with this. It seemed that the situation was far worse than she had imagined. The 8 protectors who fled with them were completely silent. Their faces were sunken as they escaped as quickly as they could. They wanted to pull away from the primordial realm experts who rapidly approached them. As the deafening booms drew closer and closer, shockwaves of energy extremely terrifying to the 8 protectors wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing space to distort. The origin energy that permeated the world of moon and star became exceedingly disorderly. In the distant sky, 2 figures were clearly presented before the 8 protectors. Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were already close enough for the 8 protectors to see them. However, when the 8 protectors saw the scene in the distance, their faces changed drastically. Intense fear rose up from the bottom of their hearts. What did they see? They clearly saw Elder He Tian covered in blood, blocking the attacks from behind him as he fled for his life. A young man in azure robes pursued Elder Mu Tian closely from behind. He had a cold, resolute face as his eyes shone with an astonishing cold light. Clearly, Elder He Tian was not the young man's opponent. Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage has infiltrated the world of moon and star. He wants to kill all people from the Radiant Saint Hall. All protectors immediately flee while protecting your candidates. Find a way to contact the outside world. At this moment, Elder He Tian's old voice rang out. His hoarse voice was filled with urgency, along with some weakness like he was becoming feeble. Qing Shan was just too powerful. Whenever he clashed with Elder He Tian, he was able to impact Elder He Tian's soul with his martial soul force. They had not fought for long, but Elder He Tian was already defeated and heavily injured. Currently, he could only flee desperately. What? Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage has infiltrated this place. It's actually someone from the martial soul lineage. We're in trouble now. Even though Qing Shan is a peak god king, he already has the power to kill primordial realm experts. It's impossible for us to be his opponent. Run, run quick. The 8 protectors all paled. Without any hesitation, they immediately began to flee crazily at the greatest speed that they could unleash with Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue in tow. The name of Qing Shan had become piercing to their ears since a long time ago. Even though they utterly resented this person, they did not dare to put up any resistance at all when they truly saw him. The only thought left in their heads was to run, run, run. The further they could run, the better it would be. It would be best if they could run to a place where Qing Shan could not find them, somewhere they could hide well. At that moment, Donglin Yanxue, who was taken along with the protectors, struggled to remain calm as well. Her exquisite face paled slightly as deep unease filled her eyes. Out of them, Jian Chen was the only person who could remain composed. However, he frowned heavily as well. Hurry up and reunite with the 4 other groups, then combine the strength of all the Radiant God Kings to work with Elder He Tian. It won't be impossible to defeat Qing Shan if we do that, Jian Chen said calmly. However, the 8 protectors completely ignored Jian Chen. Not only did they not hurry off in the direction of the 4 other groups, but they even devoted themselves to fleeing further away instead. Jian Chen could see the undisguised fear and vague despair within their eyes. Jian Chen sighed secretly with this discovery. These people left him extremely disappointed. Adding up the 5 groups, they had a total of 44 Radiant God Kings. If they worked together, they would be a great force. Coupled with Elder He Tian, he believed that they would be able to fend off Qing Shan. Even if they were not Qing Shan's opponent, at least they would not have to suffer an utter defeat at Qing Shan's hands. Even if a slight difference in strength remained, he could secretly help out, and they would be able to fend off Qing Shan. Even suppressing him was not impossible. However, he had underestimated the protectors' fear of Qing Shan. They did not have the courage to fight him at all. They did not dare to fight Qing Shan and remained beside Jian Chen the entire time. As a result, Jian Chen was unable to find the opportunity to secretly help out despite wanting to. After bellowing out, Elder He Tian changed directions and flew off elsewhere, drawing Qing Shan away. Qing Shan glanced past Donglin Yenshue's group indifferently. He smiled coldly before continuing his pursuit. In his eyes, there was no need to worry about the Radiant God Kings at all. No matter how they fled, they would not be able to escape from him. However, Elder He Tian was the elder who watched over this place, so it was extremely likely for him to possess a method to contact the outside world. As a result, killing him was the top priority right now. Qing Shan gradually traveled further away as he followed Elder He Tian. The booms from their battle grew more distant as well before disappearing completely in the end. However, the 8 fleeing Radiant God Kings did not stop even then. Their speed did not decrease at all as they fled into the distance. Along the way, they even flew over the territories of a few vicious beasts. The beasts that wandered the land pursued them crazily, but they were also ignored. The Radiant God Kings only focused on running. Sigh, Jian Chen sighed inside. He had underestimated the protector's fear of Qing Shan, which made him feel extremely helpless. Moreover, he had sensed the existence of many Radiant Origin pearls along the way, but in the end, he could only watch on as he missed out on them. It was impossible for him to remind the group. The escape continued for half a day. Finally, the 8 protectors stopped, descending into a hidden forest. Junior Yanxue, Junior Changyang, do you have a method of contacting the outside world? As soon as they stopped, the Lord of the Cloud Mist Peak, Yu Fan, asked this. He was very stern. The 7 other protectors all looked towards Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue eagerly. They did not even have the courage to fight Qing Shan. Even the old elder who watched over the world of Moon and Star was not Qing Shan's opponent, so they could only place their hopes on Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue, these 2 juniors with impressive backgrounds. They hoped they could contact the outside world and alert the Sacred Hall of what was happening here so that they could send even more powerful elders to kill Qing Shan. Donglin Yanxue shook her head gloomily and replied, the world of Moon and Star is a miniature world. All my methods of communication are unable to pass through the obstructions here. I can't contact anyone in the outside world right now. Undisguised disappointment filled the eyes of the 8 protectors. Afterwards, all of them looked at Jian Chen, and one of them asked urgently as he looked at Jian Chen with anticipation and asked, Junior Changyang, do you have any method of contacting Vice Leader Xian Zhan? Jian Chen also sighed gently, I'm the same as Donglin Yanxue. I can't establish contact with the outside world at all due to being in a different territory. Probably only Elder He Tian has the method of contacting the Sacred Hall from here. There's nothing that we can do, Donglin Yanxue added with a heavy heart. The 8 protectors all revealed ugly expressions. Elder He Tian was currently being hunted down by Qing Shan. He was busy fleeing for his life, so how could he have the time to contact the outside world? No one knew how much longer he could last for either. As soon as they considered the possibility of being coldly hunted down by Qing Shan soon, they all became filled with unease and fear. Consider my earlier suggestion. If you keep on dragging it out, it really might be too late, Jian Chen said again. He believed that this was the only way for the Radiant Saint Masters to repel Qing Shan. The 8 Radiant Saint Masters all hesitated. After a while of thought, they expressed their thoughts and began an intense discussion over Jian Chen's suggestion. Only 2 of them agreed to Jian Chen's suggestion of working with the 4 other groups to deal with Qing Shan, unleashing all their strength as Radiant God Kings to fight alongside Elder He Tian. Meanwhile, a portion of them objected to the suggestion. They believed that even if they gathered everyone's strength, they still would not be Qing Shan's opponent. After all, they had already gained a deep impression of Qing Shan's infamy. They did not wish to clash with Qing Shan openly. They believed they should take advantage of when Qing Shan was focused on Elder He Tian to flee far away and hide well. Then they could wait until the world of Moon and Star was open to the outside world again a year later. The last group of people hesitated. They struggled to make a decision. At a time like this, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue had instead become rather useless. Even with Donglin Yanshue's status as a candidate, she was unable to influence the decision of the Radiant God Kings. This was because Donglin Yanxue had not become the chosen saint yet, and the 8 Radiant God Kings were only her protectors that were tasked with guarding her. They were not her retainers who had to listen to all of her orders. Jian Chen felt helpless as he listened to the bickering between the Radiant God Kings. He was no longer in the mood to listen to their discussion. He walked over to a huge tree nearby and lopped off the ends of the twigs. Like he was weightless, he sat down on a branch that was only as thick as a wrist. He looked ahead, and his eyes shone brightly. As a result, his gaze became piercing, allowing him to see into the distance. Chapter 2300, Death of a Primordial Realm Expert. But very soon, Jian Chen's eyes dimmed down and returned to normal. Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were just too far away, they were beyond the limits of his vision. Jian Chen looked back and glanced at the 8 Radiant God Kings who were still arguing as well as Donglin Yanxue who sat on the ground helplessly. After some slight hesitation, he carefully extended the senses of his soul into the distance. Jian Chen's current level of cultivation was greater than the 8 protectors. Coupled with the changes to his soul, the senses of his soul were far greater than the 8 protectors. As a result, Jian Chen enveloped a range of 5 million kilometers in just a short amount of time. However, he did not stop there. 6 million kilometers. 7 million kilometers. Very soon, the senses of Jian Chen's soul had extended for 10 million kilometers, and he finally found traces of Qing Shan and Elder He Tian. The 2 of them were still locked in combat and were producing powerful shockwaves. These shockwaves impacted the senses of Jian Chen's soul quite a bit, but it did not obstruct his senses completely like it did with the 8 protectors. As a result, Jian Chen was able to observe the battle between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian clearly. At this moment, Elder He Tian's presence was feeble. He was grievously injured, and he had lost most of his essence blood. He had become a skinny bag of bones, which was clearly the price for using various secret techniques. He struggled to block Qing Shan's attacks more and more as blood constantly sprayed from his mouth. He was nearing his end. Qing Shan's attacks remained just as sharp and swift as before. His presence was so powerful that it made the wind and clouds churned. Even though he was also bloodied, he was not feeble. When the senses of Jian Chen's soul reached over, a bright light flashed through Elder He Tian's gloomy eyes just when he was about to reach his end. As if he now saw a ray of hope, he immediately called out, "I am an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall. My friend hidden in the dark, no matter who you are, please intervene. Our Radiant Saint Hall will be filled with gratitude." However, Qing Shan had also sensed it as well. A chilling light immediately flashed through his cold eyes as he looked at Elder He Tian like the latter was already dead. He said coldly, "Quit dreaming. No matter who comes today, they won't be able to save you." With that, Qing Shan's clothes immediately began to ruffle as his hair danced crazily. A terrifying presence radiated from him, filling the surroundings. Soul Mountain Seal. Qing Shan crossed his hands and used a powerful secret technique. After calling out, a blurry, illusionary mountain immediately condensed. With immense pressure, it descended upon Elder He Tian with terrifying force. Elder He Tian bellowed out and also used a secret technique. He burnt the last of his essence blood. At the cost of his vitality, he condensed the laws of the hallowed into a resplendent spear that shot out. This was the Elder He Tian's last attack. After that, he became completely haggard. He was feeble and was basically taking his last breaths. He had used everything he had in his battle against Qing Shan, but he felt completely powerless before the latter's martial soul force. He was unable to resist the impact to his soul at all, so it was his utter defeat. He did not even manage to cause any severe injuries to Qing Shan. Boom! Elder He Tian's final attack collided with the illusionary mountain Qing Shan had conjured. Immediately, there was a great rumble as the mountain shook. However, it only shook. Not only did the attack fail to disperse the mountain, but it continued to sink at the same speed, enveloping Elder He Tian with tremendous pressure. "My friend, please intervene." Elder He Tian bellowed out miserably, but in the end, he was struck heavily by Qing Shan's Soul Mountain Seal before the mysterious person could intervene. The Soul Mountain Seal was extremely wondrous. It did not injure Elder He Tian's body at all. Instead, it directly crushed down on Elder He Tian's soul. Elder He Tian's dimming soul immediately collapsed. It had dispersed. Elder He Tian of the Radiant Saint Hall had died. After Elder He Tian's death, the senses of Jian Chen's soul receded into the distance like water, vanishing in a single instance. However, Qing Shan looked around after killing Elder He Tian. His eyes shone with a chilling light as he murmured, "Who is this person?" The senses of his soul are slightly different from other people. If he purposefully hides it, even I can't locate him. But from the strength of the senses of his soul, he's probably equal to the Elder of the Radiant Saint Hall. It's fine if he's not a part of the Radiant Saint Hall, but I can't show any mercy if he is. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes as he sat on a tree 10 million kilometers away from where Elder He Tian had died. He stared right ahead sternly. He had witnessed Qing Shan's strength. His strength was far greater than what Shui Yunlan displayed in the Neptunian Divine Palace. He was no weaker than Jian Chen himself. With Elder He Tian's death, the hallowed Saint Masters in the world of Moon and Star had completely lost the power to fight against Qing Shan. Naturally, Jian Chen had heard Elder He Tian's pleas prior to the latter's death. He did want to help out, but there was nothing he could do from 10 million kilometers away. Even if he really could assist him somehow, he needed to consider whether his identity would be exposed. Otherwise, it would become a stupid decision of dooming oneself. "Aren't you scared at all?" At this moment, Donglin Yanshue's voice rang out from behind Jian Chen. She had also leapt onto the tree and stood on a branch gently while she looked at Jian Chen's figure with rather mixed feelings. At that moment, to Donglin Yanshue's surprise, Jian Chen's back seemed particularly straight and tall. She felt like he could hold up the sky. But afterwards, Donglin Yanshue's secret shook her head and discarded the hilarious and immature thought. She became embarrassed by her own thinking. After all, the person seated before her was just a weak Radiant Saint Master whose cultivation was not even as great as hers. What's the use of being afraid? I've faced plenty of much more despairing situations in the past. In my eyes, the danger you face right now is nothing, Jian Chen said calmly. He sat still on the tree as he looked ahead. Donglin Yanshue clearly became slightly surprised when she saw Jian Chen demonstrate a level of composure that even the 8 Radiant God Kings lacked. She could not help but study Jian Chen properly. At that moment, she suddenly discovered that she seemed to have failed to see through Jian Chen completely. However, as soon as she thought of Jian Chen's intentions of getting close to her, she became extremely repulsed. Changyang, do you regret becoming my ninth protector very much now that we're in danger? Donglin Yanxue asked. She spoke very softly, very indifferently, and slightly coldly. I don't regret it because I want to enter the Tower of Radiance. Becoming a retainer of the 5 candidates is the only choice, said Jian Chen. He spoke very calmly, without any emotion at all. Donglin Yanxue frowned. Just when she wanted to ask him why he had gone so far when he could have just asked the vice leader to enter the Tower of Radiance with his medallion, Jian Chen glanced at the 8 radiant god kings and said, "They've finished discussing. Let's head over and see what they've decided on." With that, Jian Chen drifted off the tree slowly and made his way over to the 8 protectors. Donglin Yanxue could only swallow what she wanted to ask earlier. Chapter 2301, Targeted, Have you thought it through? Jian Chen arrived before the 8 protectors. He glanced past them and asked calmly. The 8 radiant god kings looked at one another. They clearly seemed rather dispirited. They said, "We've made our decision. We all believe we should run far away. The world of moon and star is so large. Even Elder He Tian could only envelop a tiny portion of it with the senses of his soul. No matter how powerful Qing Shan is, he's still a god king. We don't believe he can search through the entire world of moon and star in one short year. We only need to last a year. After that year, the world of moon and star will open again, and the sacred hall will send powerful elders to search the entire world of star and moon. These elders will definitely find us. That might be our only chance of surviving. If that's the case, let's get moving," said Jian Chen. This time, he did not say anything else. If Elder He Tian was still present, the radiant god kings might have been able to fend off Qing Shan. But now that Elder He Tian was dead, it was impossible for the radiant god kings to stand up to Qing Shan even if all 5 groups worked together. They had already lost their only chance at repelling Qing Shan. Running far away then hiding was indeed the only method of survival left for the radiant god kings. Afterwards, everyone continued on their way. Due to their weaker strength and slower speed, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue were enveloped by a layer of light as the protectors carried them along. That way, their speed could increase drastically. Donglin Yanxue had already given up on the mission of collecting radiant origin pearls. Qing Shan's arrival had completely derailed the trial. At the same time, the 4 groups led by Gongjing Xian Bin, and De, and Shi De in various locations all made the same decision as Donglin Yanxue. The 4 of them dispersed, fleeing for their lives in various directions. To all the radiant god kings of the Radiant Saint Hall, the name Qing Shan was the most terrifying nightmare. As a result, the radiant god kings all became absolutely frightened after hearing the news that Qing Shan had entered the world of moon and star as well. The only thought remaining in their heads was to run far away and avoid Qing Shan. None of them dared to consider standing up to Qing Shan. Elder He Tian had a method to contact the outside world. He must have reported this huge incident to the Sacred Hall already. We only need to hide carefully, and the Sacred Hall will send experts to kill Qing Shan. A middle-aged radiant god king from Shi De's group said. Although he put it like that, there was still great unease on his face. All of them had chosen to flee as quickly as possible while Elder He Tian fought against Qing Shan. They did not dare to get anywhere close to the battle, so no one in the world of moon and star knew that Elder He Tian was dead apart from Jian Chen. Elder He Tian indeed had a method of communicating with the outside world. However, due to the level of the world of moon and star, its boundaries were extremely tough, so a formation engraved here needed to be activated to communicate with the outside world. Elder He Tian had no time to activate it when he fought against Qing Shan. As a result, since Elder He Tian had died, the situation in the world of moon and star would not get reported to the outside world like most of the radiant god kings were hoping. The outside world was clueless to the happenings in the world of moon and star. The 9 radiant god kings fled furiously with their candidate, unleashing their full speeds. But at this moment, a powerful presence suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. It approached the group at an extremely terrifying speed. The expressions of all 9 radiant god kings changed when they sensed the presence. They cried out in fear. It's not Elder He Tian. It's Qing Shan. Oh no, Qing Shan is coming. Where is Elder He Tian? Has Elder He Tian been defeated already? Run. Run. The 9 protectors around Shurda all became sheet white. At that moment, the small group of 10 became disorderly. 4 of them broke free from the group, fleeing in 4 different directions in a panic. Their actions were like a trigger, causing the other protectors to abandon Shurda and scatter. They believed that perhaps their chance at surviving would become slightly higher if they did that. The candidate, Shurda, was a short, plump boy. He seemed to be 17 or 18, but he had already cultivated for several hundred years now. When he saw his 9 protectors flee by themselves, his plump face immediately became warped. In the distance, the azure-robed Qing Shan gradually appeared. He strode through the air with a surging presence, making his way over. He seemed like he was on a leisurely stroll, but he would cross over 1,000 kilometers with each step. He appeared before Shurda instantly. Which one of the 5 candidates are you? Qing Shan hovered in the air and stared at Shurda coldly. His eyes shone with killing intent. I'm Shurda. Shurda's face was filled with fear as he stammered. Shurda? Very well, you can go die. As killing intent flashed through his eyes, Qing Shan extended a finger towards Shurda's forehead. Spurt. Immediately, a finger-sized hole appeared between Shurda's eyes. He collapsed powerlessly. Shurda of the 5 candidates had been instantly slain. However, Qing Shan acted like he had just accomplished a simple task. He looked in the directions that the 9 radiant god kings had fled, and he sneered, "Do you really think you can escape like this? You underestimate me far too much. No matter how far you run, no matter how well you hide, all the hallowed saint masters in the world of moon and star will face death. I will make the radiant Saint Hall go without a chosen saint this time." With that, Qing Shan pursued the 9 fleeing radiant god kings. Before long, the 9 radiant god kings in charge of protecting Shurda were hunted down one by one. Without any exception, they were mercilessly slain by Qing Shan. Before Qing Shan, who had killed even primordial realm experts, radiant god kings with measly mid-7 colored soul cores were unable to fight back at all. After killing off Shurda's entire group, Qing Shan stood where he was with his eyes closed. He used a secret technique to silently look for the others. A few seconds later, Qing Shan opened his eyes and looked to the left. He smiled coldly and said, "I've found the second group." With that, Qing Shan turned into a blur and shot off with lightning speed. He traveled straight towards the second group. The second group he was targeting was led by Donglin Yanxue. When Qing Shan hunted down Shurda's group, he had incidentally closed the distance from Donglin Yanxue's group. Hence, not only did Donglin Yanxue's group fail to travel away from Qing Shan, but they had even become the closest instead. Chapter 2302, Fighting Qing Shan. 1. Jian Chen's expression suddenly changed as the protectors carried him along. Qing Shan did not try to hide himself at all as he traveled towards them. He let his presence surge, which made him stand out very much. As a result, Jian Chen was able to sense his location despite the great distance between them. Jian Chen could sense that Qing Shan was heading towards their location with great precision. He was extremely fast. Even though there were 8 radiant god kings around him moving as quickly as they could, they were still far slower than Qing Shan. "We're in trouble." Jian Chen's face finally became rather ugly. He was not afraid of Qing Shan, but he was unable to expose his strength right now. Jian Chen's face sank as the light in his eyes flickered. He racked his brains for a way of dealing with Qing Shan. Oh no, Qing Shan is coming. Before long, Qing Shan entered the sensory range of the radiant god kings as well. The radiant god kings were able to identify him immediately from his surging presence that was different from Elder He Tian's. Their faces all changed drastically. He's coming. He's coming, run. Run quick. The 8 radiant god kings all became extremely pale as they cried out in fear. The shade of death had enveloped them as heavy dread filled their hearts. They could no longer care about protecting the chosen saint. As a result, the 8 radiant god kings acted just like Shurda's protectors, abandoning Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen to flee into the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, the 8 protectors around Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen had completely vanished. Only Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue remained there alone. Donglin Yanxue's complexion became extremely miserable. With a pale face, she looked around for the 8 protectors who had already vanished. She felt utterly powerless inside. Jian Chen also watched the 8 protectors flee with an ugly expression. Afterwards, he arrived before Donglin Yanxue and growled, "We can't stay here. Let's go." He could already sense that Qing Shan was getting closer and closer. Qing Shan's target should be me. He should have come for the candidates. Chang Yang, don't worry about me. Go. Donglin Yanxue's complexion was dreary. Her eyes were filled with despair. She no longer had any hopes of surviving, as she was about to face Qing Shan, a person who could even kill primordial realm experts. Let's go. Jian Chen frowned and called out. He grabbed Donglin Yanxue's hand before she could respond and shot off towards the dense forest in the distance. In his trip to the world of Moon and Star this time, everyone could die, but he could not let anything happen to Donglin Yanxue, as she would be directly responsible for whether he could enter the Tower of Radiance or not. Donglin Yanxue's hand was warm and smooth, but at a time like this, Jian Chen was in no mood to pay attention to such details. He held Donglin Yanxue's soft hand tightly as he flew forwards. When Donglin Yanxue felt Jian Chen grab her hand, she could not help but quiver slightly. Her emotions immediately began to ripple. Although she had been cultivating for quite some time, she had never made such close physical contact with a man before. Donglin Yanxue looked to the side slightly and glanced at Jian Chen. When she noticed Jian Chen completely concentrating on running away and showing no lechery at all, she gradually calmed down. At least he isn't like the other protectors, running away alone, thought Donglin Yanxue. She could not help but change her opinion of Jian Chen. She did not try to shake off Jian Chen's hand. Suddenly, Jian Chen stopped with an ugly expression. He said grimly, just as expected. Qing Shan has really come for us. At this moment, even Donglin Yanxue could sense Qing Shan's presence. He did not chase down the 8 protectors. Instead, he made his way directly towards them. His target is me. Run before he gets here. Get as far away as you can. Donglin Yanxue broke free from Jian Chen's grip and said gloomily. Ha ha ha. You want to escape from me with just your strength? You're underestimating me too much. Qing Shan's laughter rang out as soon as Donglin Yanxue had finished talking. A black speck even smaller than an ant appeared in the distant horizon, but in the next moment, it had crossed the huge distance and appeared before Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen, turning into Qing Shan. Jian Chen studied Qing Shan. He had heard about Qing Shan, who held first place on the God King's throne firmly and was known as the strongest God King in the entire Saints world quite some time ago. Moreover, Qing Shan was similar to him, both a fighter and a radiant Saint Master. He wielded martial soul force. Jian Chen was composed as he faced Qing Shan, while Donglin Yanxue became despaired. 4-colored soul core. You must be one of the candidates. State your name. Qing Shan hovered 3 meters in the air as he looked at Donglin Yanxue from above. He spoke coldly. Donglin Yanxue did not reply. She gritted her teeth and tossed a formation disc onto the ground from her space ring. Immediately, a powerful energy barrier was erected, surrounding her and Jian Chen. This was a rather high-quality defensive formation disc. It could easily block attacks from God Kings and a single attack from a primordial realm expert. Before Donglin Yanxue had entered the world of Moon and Star, her seniors in the Donglin clan had bestowed this item upon her. It was her greatest trump card for protecting herself. Jian Chen studied the formation disc and immediately determined it could only block a single attack from Qing Shan. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. There's only one female among the 5 candidates. You should be Dong Lin Yanxue. Qing Shan watched Dong Lin Yanxue's actions indifferently. He did not stop her. In the next moment, killing intent flashed through his eyes, and he said coldly, "Since I know your identity, you can follow Shurda's footsteps now." With that, Qing Shan extended a finger towards Dong Lin Yanxue. Immediately, a streak of light shot out from his fingertip and landed on Dong Lin Yanxue's protective barrier with enough force to make space tremble. Martial Soul Force. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes the moment Qing Shan struck out. He could clearly sense the existence of martial soul force in that move. Moreover, it was martial soul force countless times more powerful than what Jian Chen could control. Jian Chen immediately became eager. Suddenly, he desired a battle with Qing Shan very much. He wanted to understand the mysteries of martial soul force from Qing Shan. Bang! At this moment, Dong Lin Yanxue's protective formation shattered loudly after enduring a strike from Qing Shan. Powerful ripples of energy, along with Strand's martial soul force, surged through the shattered barrier and struck Jian Chen and Dong Lin Yanxue heavily. Chapter 2303, Fighting Qing Shan, 2. Even though the formation had weakened the ripples of energy, making them become next to nothing, they were still extremely terrifying to Dong Lin Yanxue, who was only equivalent to a deity. Blood sprayed from Dong Lin Yanxue's mouth as she immediately became sheet white. She was heavily injured. At the same time, her soul fell under the influence of marital soul force. Extremely weak slivers of marital soul force had wormed into her soul, heavily damaged it. Dong Lin Yanxue only felt intense pain from her head all of a sudden. In the next moment, she fell unconscious and fainted. Actually still alive. With a cold face, Qing Shan had already extended his finger a second time. A powerful beam of energy was emitted once again, shooting towards Dong Lin Yanxue with enough power to distort space. Jian Chen paid attention to Dong Lin Yanxue's situation at all times. The moment she collapsed, he used a hand to pull her in. His eyes immediately lit up when he saw that she had fainted. At the same time, space distorted slightly as a powerful pulse of energy surged in. Qing Shan's second attack shot over with lightning speed. Jian Chen did not even glance at Qing Shan's second attack. He held Dong Lin Yanxue close to him with one hand and directed his back towards Qing Shan with a swirl, protecting Dong Lin Yanxue. At the same time, his right extended backwards. Immediately, sharp laws of the sword descended, instantly gathering at the Jian Chen's fingertip. It suddenly shot out as a resplendent streak of sword qi. The sword qi only seemed to be the size of a finger, but it was extremely powerful. As it ripped through the air, it produced a shrill whistle. The space around it distorted heavily. Cracks in space seemed to appear. Jian Chen finally had the chance to fight now that Dong Lin Yanxue was unconscious and the radiant god kings had fled. The sharp sword qi collided with the beam of energy that bore martial soul force, erupting with a great boom. When the two different laws collided, they both shattered and surged out into the surroundings with a powerful shockwave. Their attacks were terrifying, completely exceeding the level of God King. The earth cracked, and space distorted. The entire region had almost collapsed. Jian Chen used his body to shield the unconscious Dong Lin Yanxue. Under the circulation of chaotic force, he had already pushed his defenses to the limit. As if his feet were rooted in the ground, he stood firmly under the impact of the shockwave. He did not move at all. On the other side, Qing Shan hovered in the air as an invisible power permeated before him, preventing the incoming shockwave from getting anywhere near him. At that moment, his eyes shone with dazzling light. He stared right at Jian Chen in shock, surprise, and disbelief. He could not help but cry out, "Laws of the sword!" Qing Shan had already discovered Jian Chen from very far away, but at the time, Jian Chen only seemed to possess a one-colored soul core, so Qing Shan did not take him seriously. However, now that Jian Chen, who clearly seemed like a radiant saint master in Qing Shan's eyes, had suddenly demonstrated power from the laws of the sword, Qing Shan finally began to take notice of him. Qing Shan's eyes shone brightly as he stared right at Jian Chen. The light in his eyes changed rapidly. Jian Chen also turned around slowly and stared at Qing Shan calmly. But very soon, he felt slightly surprised. He found Qing Shan's gaze to be rather strange. It confused him slightly. He did not sense any killing intent from Qing Shan's gaze at all. Instead, he saw slivers of joy and excitement from his gaze that rapidly changed between emotions. Did the senses of the soul earlier come from you? Qing Shan asked after staring at Jian Chen for a while. That's right. Jian Chen stared at Qing Shan with composure and asked, do you want to kill Donglin Yanxue? My intentions for coming to the world of Moon and Star is to kill all 5 candidates and all the protectors so that the Radiant Saint Hall will go without a chosen saint. Qing Shan calmed down again. He looked at Jian Chen deeply as he said seriously. Then you must be disappointed because you can't kill Donglin Yanxue, Jian Chen said calmly. Qing Shan frowned. He glared at Jian Chen and growled, you want to protect her? You're not weak, but you're not at the primordial realm. Do you think you have the capability? I do. Very well. Demonstrate to me just how great your abilities are. Qing Shan called out as his presence skyrocketed. It caused the clouds to churn as wind blew. The entire region of space twisted. Jian Chen's gaze gradually became piercing. He lowered his head to glance at the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. Currently, blood was flowing from the corner of her mouth. With a thought, the laws of space surrounded Donglin Yanxue, sending her away. The laws of space. Qing Shan exclaimed. A strange gleam of light flashed through his gaze towards Jian Chen. He could clearly sense that Donglin Yanxue had been sent to a mountain several hundred kilometers away with the laws of space. The mountain originally belonged to a pangolin that possessed the strength of an early overgod. However, the pangolin was killed by a blade of space that suddenly appeared the moment Donglin Yanxue was sent there. Jian Chen struck out firmly after sending Donglin Yanxue to somewhere safe. He attacked Qing Shan. In that instance, supreme sword intent radiated from him. It seemed to gather in from all directions while Jian Chen seemed to have become an ultimate sword that stood in the world. Afterwards, he shone with blinding light. With sword intent powerful enough to make space tremble, he stabbed towards Qing Shan. This was the first time Jian Chen had truly fought after his soul fused with the strand of chaotic force. His strike this time was utterly astonishing. As sword chi pierced through the air, space was ripped open, forming black cracks of various sizes. The cold sword chi immediately reduced the vegetation in the surroundings to powder and the rocks to dust. Even the ground below had fragments sliced off by sword chi, causing it to sink. Although Jian Chen's comprehension of the laws of the sword was still at the great perfection of sword spirit, his battle prowess had increased by far too much. Moreover, Jian Chen could clearly sense that ever since his soul changed, not only was he able to control Radiant Saint Force as he wished, but even his control over the laws of the sword had increased greatly. As a result, his affinity with the laws of the sword had reached an extremely high level. Qing Shan became stern. He bellowed out, and a terrifying energy rumbled within him. All of it gathered in his right hand. Using a finger as his sword, he swung down with extremely dense martial soul force. In that instance, time seemed to slow down. Qing Shan's finger contained the profound mysteries of ways, causing it to seemingly interfere with the flow of time, making it seem abnormally slow. Chapter 2304, Fighting Qing Shan, 3. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. In the moment Qing Shan struck, Jian Chen immediately felt a powerful wave of martial soul force seem to shoot out, tearing through his protective light and striking his soul. Martial soul force was a type of power different from origin energy that specifically attacked the soul. It was impossible to guard against. Even Jian Chen was unable to defend himself from it. However, Jian Chen was no ordinary cultivator. Apart from the fact that his soul had undergone an unbelievable change due to the strand of chaotic force, he was also an existence who wielded martial soul force. As a result, when the presence of the martial soul force tore through Jian Chen's defenses and reached his soul, Jian Chen felt no discomfort at all. The damage from the influence had been reduced to a minimum. He was basically immune to it. Boom! At the same time, Jian Chen collided with Qing Shan's finger like a sword, erupting with a huge boom. Immediately, even more powerful martial soul force surged over. Like a huge python, it snaked past Jian Chen's defenses and collided with his soul. The martial soul force was even more powerful than before. Even the souls of primordial realm experts would be severely affected. However, Jian Chen remained the same as before. He was not overly affected. The threat of marital soul force was not as terrifying to him as to other cultivators. However, Qing Shan's strike was more than just martial soul force. There was also devastating energy. When it came into contact with Jian Chen's sword qi, it immediately shattered and scattered the sword qi, shooting off in all directions like rain. Qing Shan's finger continued towards Jian Chen's chest with some remaining power. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. The power of Qing Shan's finger was far greater than he had anticipated. However, he did not become flustered. He received it with composure. Immediately, his presence changed. In that instance, he seemed to have fused with the surroundings, becoming the laws of the world, an existence that controlled the region. The space there had already collapsed. At that moment, the specks of sword qi that had shot outwards all halted. As if they were experiencing some kind of calling, they gathered towards Jian Chen with even greater speed, instantly condensing into a resplendent streak of light above Jian Chen's head. It ripped through space and cleaved towards Qing Shan's finger mercilessly. Jian Chen completely depended on his own usage of the laws of the sword to unleash such strength. The many sword techniques he had learned in the past were completely useless now due to their limited grades. "You're much more powerful than I imagined you to be," Qing Shan called out. His finger that originally slashed towards Jian Chen's chest suddenly changed in direction. He used two fingers to clamp down Jian Chen's sword qi as he smiled strangely, martial soul technique, repossession. With that, martial soul force immediately shot out from the area between Qing Shan's eyes, landing on Jian Chen's sword qi as an invisible blade. Jian Chen's face suddenly changed. He was surprised. In that instance, he suddenly discovered his connection with the sword qi had been severed. The sword qi condensed from his laws of the sword were no longer under his control. Qing Shan had taken possession of them. There's actually such a wondrous use of martial soul force? Jian Chen was astonished inside. The sword qi condensed by Jian Chen stabbed back at him under Qing Shan's control. That was not all. Qing Shan clenched his right hand into a fist. Terrifying energy surged on its surface, and he punched out right behind the sword qi. Jian Chen showed no fear at all. Chaotic force circulated as the laws of strength descended. He also threw a punch, striking out with unbelievably great force. The might of his punch had reached the limit. The moment he struck out, the space before him shattered like glass. The origin energy in the surroundings even dispersed. The moment the sword qi came into contact with Jian Chen's fist, the sword qi began to collapse inch by inch. It had been shattered. Afterwards, Jian Chen's punch continued onwards without weakening at all, colliding with Qing Shan's punch with chilling force. Bang! A heavy boom rang out in the surroundings. Their clash this time was extremely frightening. It formed a visible shockwave that spread out in all directions. Wherever it went, the landscape vanished. All the mountains within 100 kilometers were reduced to dust. The entire ground sank. Qing Shan was knocked away by Jian Chen's punch. He only stabilized himself after flying for several kilometers. His blood and organs surged, and his entire right arm became numb. Afterwards, he stared at Jian Chen in surprise and called out, "The laws of strength. You've actually grasped the laws of the sword, the laws of space, and the laws of strength and reached God King with all of them." No. Even if it's the laws of strength, it's impossible for your power to reach such a terrifying level. It's your body. Your body holds extraordinary power. Jian Chen said nothing. The space around him pulsed slightly, and he vanished in that instance. Using the laws of space, he teleported across a short range and appeared behind Qing Shan instantly. Bringing his hands together, an even more powerful strand of sword qi suddenly appeared. It stabbed towards Qing Shan's back with enough power to rip through space. Qing Shan's heart shivered. The sword qi was so powerful that he did not dare to be careless. Before the sword qi had even arrived, he felt countless strands of sword qi moving around him and enveloping him completely. He felt piercing pain all over. Even his azure robes became covered with many slashes. In that moment, he felt like he had entered a sword domain, where invisible sword qi was omnipresent. Soul Mountain Seal. Qing Shan bellowed out. He formed a seal with both hands, and an illusionary mountain appeared above him. It was hazy and seemed like it was surrounded by clouds. However, the mountain gave off terrifying power that seemed strong enough to crush worlds. The hazy mountain rapidly descended. It radiated with astonishing might as the space below it suddenly froze. It crushed down on Jian Chen like it was unstoppable. Jian Chen's body sank. In that moment, he felt like he had become burdened with a mysterious force. It formed a restraint that he struggled to break free from. It prevented him from dodging the illusionary mountain, forcing him to receive it head-on. Jian Chen was stern. The sword qi that originally stabbed towards Qing Shan's back suddenly traveled towards the sky. As a streak of light, it collided with the illusionary mountain. At the same time, laws of strength gathered from around him. He unleashed his greatest strength and threw uppercuts. Bang! 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 Jian Chen's punches caused space to erupt as the surroundings rumbled heavily. His chaotic body was already tough. Coupled with the laws of strength, the power in each punch was frightening and astonishing. In just 3 punches, he had forcefully shattered the illusionary mountain. Afterwards, Jian Chen used his body as a sword, becoming clad in blinding light as he stabbed out. At the same time, he used the laws of strength and the laws of space simultaneously. He used the 3 laws together in battle. He was protected by the dazzling light from the laws of the sword outside while his body was strengthened by the laws of strength, making him terrifyingly tough. He used the laws of space to push his speed to the limits so that his strike was utterly shocking in the end. It was no longer the primordial realm. The power within his strike was enough to kill experts of the primordial realm. Haha, nice. Qing Shan showed no fear as he faced Jian Chen's astonishing attack. As he laughed aloud, his presence suddenly skyrocketed. He also struck out with his full strength, using a secret technique to deal a shocking attack that caused space to collapse. They fought with great intensity. Every time they clashed, a deafening boom would ring out. Frightening, violent storms of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing space to crack time and time again. They fought their way up into the sky before fighting their way deep underground. They fought as they retreated, moving tens of thousands kilometers away. Along the way, all vegetation was reduced to powder while mountain range after mountain range collapsed and vanished. They had been shattered by the powerful shock waves, reduced to thick dust that filled the skies. Fire-red lava spewed out from below the ground with great heat, dyeing the entire region red. As Jian Chen and Qing Shan's attacks would miss from time to time and land on the earth, they had formed tunnels thousands of kilometers long, penetrating into the depths of the ground and disturbing the lava there. Both Jian Chen and Qing Shan were quite injured now that the battle had reached such a point. Their clothes were soaked in blood. Qing Shan was surrounded by a milky white light. This was radiant saint force. His wounds healed at a visible rate under its influence, recovering as he fought. Even though Jian Chen did not use radiant saint force to heal, the great regenerative capacity of the chaotic body was perfectly unleashed. As a result, his wounds healed at a rate no slower than Qing Shan's. As the two of them fought, the three groups led by Gongjing Xian Bin, and Nda, along with the protectors who had abandoned Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen, all halted in their tracks. They looked towards the sky, staring in Jian Chen and Qing Shan's direction from afar. The light in their eyes flickered. What's happening? Why have all of you stopped? Gongjing Xian barked at the protectors around him. There was undisguised panic and fear on his face. This was fear towards Qing Shan. Young Master Xian, there are experts fighting in the distance. The shockwaves from their battle are extremely terrifying, so terrifying that they've caused the world to change. Even from 10,000 kilometers away, we can sense it clearly, a protector said from beside Gongjing Xian, still badly shaken. One of them should be Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage. Who's the other person? It doesn't matter who he is. We can be certain that he's much more powerful than Elder He Tian. The disturbance from his battle against Qing Shan is even greater than Elder He Tian's. Has the Sacred Hall received the news and sent an expert? The other protectors said. The light in their eyes flickered with uncertainty as they looked at one another. Afterwards, one of them suggested, since Qing Shan has been stopped, there's no need for us to fear anymore. Let's go and see which expert is fighting Qing Shan. Afterwards, some of the protectors immediately flew towards where Jian Chen and Qing Shan fought. The others remained behind to protect Gongjing Xian. After they made the same decision, Nda's group also did something similar. Only Xian Bin's group, under the candidate's insistence, did not have any protectors go over to check. They continued to flee. The protectors who had abandoned Donglin Yanxue were no exception either. They all turned around and approached the battle. The shockwaves are so intense. Qing Shan must have encountered an opponent even more powerful than Elder He Tian. The Sacred Hall must have learned about the situation in the world of Moon and Star and sent an expert to deal with Qing Shan. Qing Shan is struggling to deal with his problems now. Let's hurry back and see if we can find the opportunity to kill Qing Shan. Killing Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage would be a deed of great merit. The protectors all stopped running for their lives with various thoughts. They started to approach Qing Shan by following the shockwaves. Boom! 10 million kilometers away, Jian Chen and Qing Shan clashed once more before being knocked away by the great force. When Qing Shan stabilized himself, a black sword suddenly appeared with a flip of his hand. It gave off the might of a god artifact. He called out, soul-severing sword, low-quality god artifact. Even the elder who just died to my hands was not enough for me to use this sword, but you are. I hope you don't disappoint me. With that, Qing Shan swung the sword and shot out an ink-black streak of sword chi, directing it towards Jian Chen. After taking out the god artifact, Qing Shan's battle prowess was elevated to a new level. The sword chi ripped a pitch-black gash in space that was several meters long. Jian Chen was stern. In that moment, he no longer held back either. With a flip of his hand, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways suddenly appeared. As he channeled his chaotic force into the weapon, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways immediately shone with resplendent starlight, conjuring illusionary stars. Every star conjured made the power in the sword rise. A total of 6 illusionary stars appeared from the 9-star sword of heavenly ways one after another. Jian Chen also swung out. Immediately, starlight seemed to twinkle as it collided with the soul-severing sword loudly. The clash between the two god artifacts unleashed a might that was even more shocking. The terrifying powers collided, causing space to erupt with a thunderous boom. Space collapsed where the god artifacts clashed, forming a meter-wide black hole. Along with the shockwave, a great force erupted, pushing both Jian Chen and Qing Shan into constant retreat. Qing Shan was slightly pale and some blood ran down from the corner of his mouth. However, he stared at Jian Chen with shining eyes as he laughed out loud, "The 9-star sword of heavenly ways. It really is you." Meanwhile, Jian Chen was emotionless and cold. He knew Qing Shan had already realized his true identity. However, he was not surprised. He was already ready to expose his identity after he made up his mind to protect Dongjin Yanxue. The 9-star sword of heavenly ways in Jian Chen's hand suddenly jolted, and it shone with blinding starlight. He glared at Qing Shan. Just when he was about to continue the battle, he suddenly frowned. He glanced around and saw what was going on extremely far away. It was like his gaze could pierce through space. He had already sensed the approach of many radiant god kings with lightning speed from all directions. Even though they were several million kilometers away, it would not take them long to arrive with their speeds as radiant god kings. As a matter of fact, the senses of their souls could easily reach over. However, the space around them was filled with extremely violent storms of energy, preventing the radiant god kings from nearing this place with the senses of their souls. Jian Chen gave up on his plan of continuing his fight with Qing Shan since these people were approaching. He stowed the 9-star sword of heavenly ways away and said coldly, "Qing Shan, I'll continue my fight with you some other time." With that, the power of the laws of space immediately pulsed from his location. In the next moment, he vanished. He had left. Jian Chen used the laws of space to teleport 1,000 kilometers away. Afterwards, with a few flashes, he moved 10,000 kilometers away as quickly as he could. He picked up the still unconscious Donglin Yanxue from the mountain he had placed her in before flying off into the distance. Qing Shan gripped the soul-severing sword as he hovered in the air. He did not stop Jian Chen from leaving. His eyes shone extremely brightly as he looked at Jian Chen with a strange light. His lips curled into a smile as he said, "I actually encountered the 8th wielder of martial soul force here. However, his battle prowess is great enough to astonish me. That's quite surprising. It's just a pity that he has no idea how to use martial soul force." Qing Shan stowed his sword away as he said that. He looked at the radiant god kings who approached this place rapidly and his gaze immediately became cold. These people seemed to make him worry. But fair enough, there shouldn't be anyone in the Radiant Saint Hall who knows his true identity, or he wouldn't be able to survive until now. Since that's the case, let me erase his worries completely. Chapter 2306, Close Contact. With that, Qing Shan turned into an azure blur that shot off in the sky. He approached the radiant god kings gathering over with lightning speed. He did not seem to be afraid of alarming the radiant god kings at all. As he flew through the air, he radiated with a powerful presence that flooded the surroundings. The protectors of the 3 candidates shot towards the battle from 3 different directions. The shockwaves from the battle earlier were just too powerful, having completely exceeded the level of God King. As a result, the radiant god kings scattered across the world of moon and star all thought the sacred hall had sent an expert to deal with Qing Shan. After all, they had heard from the elder when they arrived here that the vicious beasts had been screened first, leaving behind vicious beasts that were god kings at most. It was impossible for an existence beyond God King to appear. Hence, they immediately connected it to reinforcements from the sacred hall as soon as they sensed the primordial realm battle shockwaves. I wonder which elder has entered the world of moon and star. However, no matter who he is, Qing Shan is done for. Since the sacred hall already knows Qing Shan is here, the elder they've sent can definitely kill him. An elder has already come here. Qing Shan is done for anyway, so I have to put on a good act before the elder. If I can be of some use, it'll be a service of great merit. The light in the eyes of the radiant god kings rushing over flickered. They all had different thoughts. But very soon, one of the groups suddenly halted. They stared straight ahead in surprise and doubt. They could already sense a terrifying presence that was enough to give them chills approaching them at an extraordinary speed. However, they were not unfamiliar with the owner of the presence, which made them feel shocked and fearful. The presence belonged to Qing Shan. Oh no, Qing Shan is coming for us. Where is the elder who fought against Qing Shan? Why can't I sense his presence? The elder's presence has vanished. Oh no, run. Run quick. The radiant god kings paled as fear filled their faces. They fled in the other direction as quickly as they could. Behind them, Qing Shan pursued with cold eyes as his lips curled into a scornful smile. He moved extremely quickly, enough to cross 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. He had completely surpassed the radiant god kings who had unleashed their full speed. Very soon, he caught up with a radiant god king and struck out firmly. He was vicious and merciless, killing the radiant god king in a single strike. He did not stop for a single moment, continuing to hunt down the remaining god kings. At the same time, the peaceful space several million kilometers away on a mountain suddenly rippled. Jianshan silently appeared there with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. After several short-distance teleportations, Jianshan had traveled far away from where he fought Qing Shan. He stared into the distance as he carried Donglin Yanxue. It was like he could see where Qing Shan was. The light in his eyes flickered, and after hesitating slightly, he no longer remained where he was. He continued to fly towards the distance. At this moment, a rather pained groan rang out from between Jianshan's arms. Donglin Yanxue had woken up slowly. She opened her eyes weakly, and when she saw Jianshan's face, she immediately became confused. Jianshan slowed down right away, maintaining the speed that belonged to a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core. He crossed the mountains as he ran along the ground with Donglin Yanxue in his arms. He asked, "You've woken up?" Donglin Yanshue's mind cleared up very soon. She immediately sensed that she was in Jianshan's arms, which made her blush in embarrassment. But in the next moment, she suddenly thought of something and studied the surroundings with shining eyes. She asked nervously, "Where's Qing Shan? Didn't he kill us? How did we escape?" Jianshan chuckled and replied, "We were lucky. Just when Qing Shan wanted to kill us, a vicious beast suddenly appeared. The vicious beast seemed to have grievances with Qing Shan, so it engaged in a great battle with him. As for me, I carried you and fled during the mess and fortunately escaped the disaster." Donglin Yanxue firmly believed Jianshan's words. Feeling fortunate, she said, "The vicious beast should have been a peak god king, or it would not have been Qing Shan's opponent. That really was close. If it weren't for the vicious beast, we definitely would not have been able to survive until now." When she reached there, Donglin Yanxue suddenly realized that Jianshan was still carrying her. She immediately blushed and she said softly, "Changyang, let me down." Jianshan paused. He lowered his head and looked at Donglin Yanxue. He said sternly, "You're heavily injured. You might not be able to travel alone. Are you certain that you want me to let you down?" Donglin Yanxue did not dare to make eye contact with Jianshan. She nodded with a blushing face. "All right. However, you need to know that we're technically still close to Qing Shan. We can't stay here in case he comes in pursuit," said Jianshan. He used one hand to support Donglin Yanshue's waist. He steadied her as he gently placed her on the ground. Feeling Jianshan's thick, powerful arm, Donglin Yanshue's heart immediately became a mess. Her heart began to beat uncontrollably as her blushed face grew even redder. Donglin Yanxue struggled to her feet, but right after she took a small step, she could not help but yelp in pain. She staggered and almost fell over. She had endured a strike from Qing Shan. Even though a formation had blocked the attack, so not even 1/100th of the original attack struck her, she was still severely injured. She could not even walk. Jianshan's hands moved quickly. He took a step forward to support Donglin Yanxue as he said helplessly, "You can't even stand right now. It's impossible for you to cover ground alone. Let me carry you. Donglin Yanshue's eyes dodged Jian Chen's gaze. She did not dare to make eye contact. She gritted her teeth as she faced an internal dilemma. In the end, perhaps she understood that she was unable to travel alone in her current state and that if she kept wasting time, it was extremely likely for Qing Shan to find them. With no other choice, she agreed to Jian Chen's suggestion. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.